is a presentation of the iRacing eSports Network.
Oh, that was late.
Hey guys! This week, the 6 on my team are Truex, Logano, Larson, Blaney, Chase, and Suarez. For the rest of you, better luck next week.
She's missing out, dude.
Yeah. The all-new NASCAR Fantasy Live. Visit NASCAR.com/fantasy and build your team today.
On a round of 8, pace car down and in. It's Cordy Vincent's field to control as they roll slowly at 49 miles an hour off the quarter to take the American Ethanol green flag. Round of 8 racing once more from Dover. Second to last race of 2018. Michael Conti, well, you see the fine machine. He is yet to pit. He is still your race leader with now 56 laps left to go on the board. So obviously the call for the 24 here is he didn't feel like he could beat the 5 straight up. He wants to beat him on a short pit. And speaking of pitting, here comes the 5. Dover, one of the more tricky pit road entries, and that looked pretty spot on for Conti. Obviously, pitting now with just over 50 laps to go, going to be enough to get to the end of this race. My concern is that very early stop by Leahy. His tires are going to be shot by the time he gets to the end of this run. I don't think the fuel's a concern to him, but he was already, I think, struggling enough as is on the long run. He's going to become your race leader. Don't get me wrong, when this cycles through, the 24 will be back to P1. I just don't know how much he's going to have left by the time it gets down to those final 20 laps. But the fight for third is where you need to look because Michael Conti is there. And again, about a 10-lap tire advantage by pitting more so on strategy with everybody else than the short pit by Keegan Leahy. Leahy needs to win this race if he wants to race for the championship and make the championship 4. And the 5, I think, is just going to have way too many laps to figure him out. You've only got to beat him on 1 quarter, and he's got 37 laps to do it. There's a block, though, as the 24 goes high at a turn 2. He continues to dig on the inside, and this could be the most critical battle for what will be a race win we've seen all season long. The 24 should have a better run off of the quarter on the outside, but are those tires going to be too good into the quarter for the 5 to get the gap? Off of turn 4, he will push up, and yes, sir, Michael Conti passes Leahy for what is 3rd position right now, but what is soon going to become the battle for the race lead.
He needs a few more laps like the last one that he had in hopes that Conti does about the same thing that he's done the last few laps by. Conti will come up at a 4 this time, and we'll put in a lap of 25.01 to Bobby Zielinski's lap of 24.93. So there's about a 10th or so on that lap to get it within 0.6 of a second, but he needs to continue to do that, and Conti, he'll be there, but again, he's got to get by Michael Conti. Obviously, if you've got a shot at racing for a championship, I'm sure Bobby Zielinski might consider that if he does get up to Michael Conti, and I'm sure Conti will have that in the back of his mind too, but that lap right there gets a little bit closer to Michael Conti. I think he's going to be there, Evan. The question is how bad do you want it, and can you get to that back bumper to make it happen?
Yeah, Zielinski's fallen off incredibly. He might not even hang on to second as Lusa closes in, and a big slide from the 6 machine, but Zielinski's lost a ton of time. It is going to be a white flag in the air. Second to last time off for the quarter for the number 5 of Michael Conti. He really wasn't sure, I think, coming into tonight, knowing that his fate was already determined, just how big of a factor he would play in the names that were going to make it into the championship 4. But when it comes down to it, he's the one that plays spoiler. He'll snatch a ticket to Homestead away for the driver of the number 83 machine, and it'll be his 2nd win in 4 weeks. Michael Conti wins from Dover, 2nd on the round of 8, and he'll head to Homestead in search of a 2nd championship, arguably as the favorite. Since 2011, the 1.5-mile oval in Miami-Dade County has played host to the final round of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and 2018 will be no different. But first, let's see how we got here. Ottinger throws the block and it will keep him behind him. Nick Ottinger wins at Daytona. It's going to be the rookie phenom from Canada, Keegan Leahy, wins for a third time. For a series best fourth time this year, Ryan Luza will head to victory lane again. You've got to love this time of year. Let's go playoff racing. And with his first win of 2018, Michael Conti is headed to Homestead. Matt Busa gets his first career win and punches his ticket to the championship. 40 drivers, 40 opportunities. Now, only 4 remain and only 1 can be champion. Who will reach the peak? Will it be the 5 of Michael Conti? While it hasn't been a career year for the 2014 champion, it has been a fantastic last 2 months. If anyone has momentum, it's him. What about the defending champion? After a stellar season, Ryan Luza could leave Homestead with back-to-back titles. One thing is certain, though, points won't do him any good here. How about the newcomer? Matt Busa is the only driver in the Championship 4 without a title. With him looking for his fairy tale ending, we could be in store for an upset. And then there's 3-time. After a relatively quiet 2018 campaign, Ray Alfalo will be seeking a record of 4th career championship. It all comes down to this. 4 drivers, 1 champion. The race begins now. Tonight for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, it is Championship 4 night as we prepare to crown the 2018 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series champion, and we're so happy that you're along for the ride with us this evening for the 18th and final race this season. We welcome you into the RaceSpotTV booth. Myself, Evan Pasoko, Randy Cheneth with you for the call tonight. Our director, Hugo Louise, is downstairs bringing us to you as we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to tonight's Homestead 250. A lot going to be going on tonight as we get set to go racing for the season finale. But as we get set to go, first want to welcome in a special guest this evening, Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer with NASCAR, Steve O'Donnell. Steve, we're about getting set to go here, but we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Next year, NASCAR and iRacing will be celebrating 10 years of racing together in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. So as we gather here at tonight's championship race, what are your thoughts on the performance of this series?
Yeah, first of all, Evan, thanks for having me. Huge night right in the series, crowning the championship. It's been 10 years that NASCAR has had this partnership. Goes all the way back with guys like Dale Jr., who are big proponents of this and love seeing how it's grown, love seeing the participation and what it's doing for the sport as a whole. So really incredible to be able to not only come on tonight, but excited to see what happens and who can get the championship down in Homestead.
We've got a ton of drivers who are very experienced on the sim going racing tonight, but the kind of other side, the big part of iRacing is that we see a lot of real-world drivers use this service as a training tool. How do you see it as that helps them prepare for race weekends?
Yeah, I think it's huge, right? We all know the story about William Byron. I think probably the most recent one, right, was the Roval, which was a tremendous event for us, and you had Chase Briscoe getting out of the car and saying iRacing was a big reason why I won that race. So not only for our current drivers is it a huge tool, but to me, you know, this is the future. This is where we're going to find a number of drivers as well. It's not easy to go out and buy a race car, right? So this is a great entree into the sport, and it's something we can see that can help develop NASCAR around the world.
You've seen the spotlight on esports grow and grow as these years have gone on. We actually just finished up the inaugural NASCAR Ignite Series season, and as we crown our NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series champion tonight, things are just also heating up on the NASCAR side of things also, similar to the format we've seen on the virtual side. Just tell everybody tuning in what they can expect to see for the rest of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, lots of excitement going on, right? We head to Martinsville this weekend, and you win in Martinsville, and you're going to be down in Miami racing for the championship. So can't wait to get there. Our friends at NBC Sports are ready to go. So got a good mix of talent. Certainly the Stewart-Haas guys are going to be tough to beat, but I'm looking forward to it. Same as we got tonight, right? You got 4 great racers going after a championship.
They are ready to rock and roll, so we'll let you get out of here, Steve. We greatly appreciate your time, and sit back and enjoy the race as we get set to go sim racing tonight.
Looking forward to it, Evan. Thanks.
Special guest tonight, big thanks, Steve O'Donnell, the Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer with NASCAR. We are rolling off the grid from a Homestead Miami Speedway. Let's go trackside and take a look at your RaceSpotTV starting grid. It is a pole position for Nick Ottinger, who will bring us to the green flying tonight alongside Brad Davies, Brian Schoenberg, Blake Reynolds with the top 5. The big question is, where are our playoff drivers? It is Ryan Luza who will start 4th position this evening behind the wheel of the number 6 machine. A little bit further down the running order, Matt Busa will start 8th on the grid. Ray Alfala is rolling from 9th. And it is going to be a little bit of a hole to dig for Michael Conti, 4th out of those 4. He will start in P20. Pace car going to be headed out and in this time, as we have been all season. We're so happy that you're joining us on a RaceSpotTV at the iRacing eSports Network. One race to crown a champion. Let's go racing from Homestead. Green flag in the air to turn number 1. Nick Ottinger, your pole sitter, brings us up to the gears for the first time.
Going to be interesting to see what we have here, Evan. So many people with championship situations on the line. People, of course, running for that $10,000 grand prize. Other people running as well to carry their license in the next season. Will you be aggressive on these opening laps, or will you play it calm and just get into the first opening rhythm of this first run at Homestead? They come off turn 4, some 3 wide in the back, maybe a couple cars climbing the wall, but we are green through lap 1.
Completing lap 1 the key, and there is total 29 cars that are in tonight. Of course, you can see the full running order across the top of your screen every single time around. It is not just those championship 4. All of our non-playoff drivers going to be a huge factor in this race. Of course, your highest rated playoff driver now is Luza. He gains a spot on the opening lap of this race. He leapfrogs Brad Davies, moves into 3rd. You don't necessarily have to win this race as one of our championship hopefuls to get the job done. There are no points, technically, no bonus points on the line. The only objective is to beat your fellow 3 competitors. Something tells me, though, that these championship 4 are not going to finish this race as spread out as they are now, though.
No, there's no way, especially if you look at some of the qualifying statistics from some of these guys. You look at both Ray Alfala and Matt Busa in particular, they've made their championship this year running through the field. They've probably been the worst 2 drivers in the entire playoff segment of this season. And we see Matt Busa getting ready to make a move on the 83 of Bobby Zielinski. Those 2 in particular, probably the worst starting position average of everyone who is in it for the championship this season. So they're going to be comfortable running through the field as we get an opening caution here early on in this one.
Early caution, it's the Oda division around. That is David Rattler, and we're going to check things up. Just 4 laps into this Homestead 250. We'll get a quick look at that on the RaceSpotTV replay. This incident back in 22nd spot, and we haven't had a ton of time to talk about the challenges of this Homestead Miami Speedway, and you saw it right there, all on his own. You'll see the move to the inside. Rattler tries to set up for a pass down into quarter 1, and you're going to see the back end of that race car step out, and he's eventually, I guess he figures out he's not going to save it, kind of locks it down, spins out onto the apron, nobody else involved, but it is going to be a quick caution here tonight.
Kind of the dream situation for a spin in the opening run, isn't it? 1 car loses it all by himself, no calamity, no one in the wall, but now we get a little bit of maybe separate strategy coming out. Who's going to come down and get new tires? Who isn't? It looks like Nick Ottinger is keen on staying out, and he's going to be one of 29 drivers, it looks like, that opts to go for that decision. Everyone else wants 4 on fuel.
And that's one of their challenges as a race leader, is oftentimes it feels going to do the opposite of what you do. We'll see if Schoenberg dives out, but all of those drivers in that line are pitting, and Nick Ottinger in the 05 may be the lone driver who's not still up at a racetrack every bit down to the pit lane. And you want to talk about an early gamble, I don't think it's that much of a risk when you've got 27 other cars down onto pit road with you. Look how barren the racetrack is. It's pretty much only Nick Ottinger as everybody else comes down to the pit lane. Wouldn't be surprised at all if some drivers maybe swing for just 2 here. We only ran 4 laps before the yellow.
It's not basically just Nick Ottinger. It is literally just Nick Ottinger who ended up staying out. But let's see who's going to end up winning this race off of pit road. We're going to have some more strategy come through. The 15 is Zach Novak. He's going to roll right through pit road. Didn't even stop in his box. So that's not even really a strategy call as much. But he's going to take that second spot. I believe it's pretty much going to be 4 tires and fuel for the rest of the field, as Schoenberg will be third off.
And Schoenberg is the first car off with the 4-tire call, so he'll stay in that exact position. Luzino changes Davies and Reynolds to round out your top 5. Of course, there was a question mark, what's Zach Novak going to do? Maybe he just missed the pit stall, because he is headed right back down onto the access road, which if we go green flag racing tonight at Homestead through green flag pit stops, those pit road entrances, that flat access lane, especially on the inside of turns 1 and 2, and drivers are going to be trying to get up to speed, going to be a huge factor tonight. But it looks like Novak going to have to pay for the mistake. He will come right back down to the pit lane, so that will not change things up too much. Let's take this opportunity under the yellow to look at how we got here with a quick recap of this 2018 campaign. If you haven't been with us to this point already, an open round of the playoffs, 4 races, and an elimination round that cut our 8 field of drivers down to 4, and it into this evening. That's a recap of all the race wins. You see those bottom 4, Darlington, Indianapolis, Atlanta, and Dover. A race win in any of those automatically locked you into this championship 4, and Michael Conti's 2 wins and Matt Busa's 1 guaranteed them in. 2 of the drivers qualifying in on points. As we transition over to the look at the playoff grid headed into this evening, you'll see that it was Ryan Luza by 30-odd points above the cut line, and Ralph Fallon, who tonight is searching for a 4th career title, only beats Nick Ottinger by 5 points above the cut line. Ottinger, Leahy, Zelensky, and Shelton eliminated, and it'll be determined amongst those 4 you see in the championship 4 to get the title here tonight from Homestead, Miami. But an early caution flag has slowed things down. Nick Ottinger, the only driver who did not pit, your pole sitter, is going to bring us back to the green flag. We'll see how good the 05 Toyota is on those old tires. Pace car off and away. He's not going to hesitate at all. Green flag back in the air at Homestead with 7 laps complete.
We saw him go early on the opening jump, and he's going to go early again as they scream into turns 1 and 2. Coming from a yellow for the second time tonight. They're going to get ready to come off turn 2, some 2 and 3 wide, up and down the field, but Ottinger's still in command. Schoenberg's going to have a bit of a run down the back straightaway, might take a cheeky peek down into turn 3, but he's going to back out of it as the 6 of Ryan Michael Luza running in 3rd is just going to kind of sit there for now, as Michael Conti needs to try to work his way forward, as we have all of our championship contenders somewhat lined up. We have Ryan Michael Luza running in that 3rd spot, Michael Conti in 6th, Matt Busa in 8th, and Ray Alfala in 9th. So all 4 drivers who are in it for 10 grand tonight, they're all in the top 10 in the first 10 laps.
And look at the 6 machine trying to make a move for the race lead. We are going to go 3 wide for the lead at Homestead, just 9 laps in. Luza wants to make the inside work, and Schoenberg way over drove quarter 3. He'll throw this one away. Brad Davies with a big run as the 13 flies up the inside, but it is Ryan Luza leading that lap, and now Davies going to challenge on the inside.
13 of Brad Davies is going to try to challenge the 6 of Ryan Luza. And if you're any of those other championship 4, that's what you need to hope for, because when Ryan Luza can get out front in clean air, potentially lead the entirety of one of these races, that is when he is at his scariest. He has done that many, many times the last couple of seasons, as our pole sitter in the 00 continues to fall backwards. The 05. Not sure what happened to Nick Ottinger, but he's gone from leading this race down to 6th within about 2 laps, and I think he's getting ready to lose more spots as Ottinger, Busa, and Alfala are lining up behind, and they're setting him up 3 wide.
And that third lane up top, not the fastest way around. That's Ottinger followed back at Alfala and Busa, two championship drivers that are side by side for position. Get on by him. Just that 4-lap difference on tires. Nick Ottinger's decision to not come down to the pit lane, hurting him dearly as he continues to slide down the running order. You saw a little bit of single filing out happen up front. Still a ton of action mid-pack as the field cycles through quarters 1 and 2 now. You go on board about mid-pack here. Nick Ottinger in that number 11 machine, or I guess I should say Nick Ottinger dropping it back to what was the 11th position, but he'll try to get one back into the positive as he dives down to the inside and tries to hold off Logan to clamp it. Not sure how successful he's going to be able to do, though, at 46. Will once again beat him using that run on the outside of the racetrack. This Homestead Miami Speedway, 1.5 miles in length. But unlike all the other ones, it's not a quad oval, it's not a tri-oval, it's a straight shoot from turn 4 to 1. And it looked like Clampett used that 20 degrees to bank it up against the wall to his advantage.
Yeah, one of the only true ovals really left on the schedule that we have. The rest are either tri or quad ovals for the most part, but what does come into play, of course, is the variable banking you have here. So the track's a little bit flatter as you're down up against that white line. You get a little bit more of that racetrack helping you the further up you go, and that's why as this race goes on, as in addition to this track getting rubbered in, you will see different lanes come in tonight, and I would be not surprised whatsoever if we get some good multi-lane racing as this thing picks up. We're still pretty much single file inside of your about top 15 or so. We get much further beyond that. We have a great fight right now with the 11 of Colton Davis trying to make a move on the 05 of Ottinger as well, as the 05 troubles continue here, as Davis is now going to be working on the 24 of Keegan Leahy.
Yeah, Leahy up on the outside of the racetrack in that number 24 machine. Pretty much dead even that time down the front straightaway. The 11's going to peek to the inside. Colton Davis pretty much neck and neck as they fight for that spot. And even behind them, you got Philip Diaz and the 05 of Ottinger going at it as the 05 trying to be as stubborn as he can to not just let these drivers go on through. Keegan Leahy was a playoff driver as of 2 weeks ago. Looking for maybe a little bit of redemption this evening would be quite the statement, I think, if any of the drivers, especially if you had been eliminated from earlier in the playoffs, but you know, if anybody besides the championship 4-1, I think that would kind of be throwing the gauntlet for next year. Randy, you mentioned it right off at the top. Not only are we looking to crown a champion, but everybody else hoping to maintain their top 20 position in the points, make sure they are locked into this series for 2019.
One of the great things that I love about the iRacing World Championships, not only here, the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, but all of them that we have, is the sort of rotation of drivers you get, always allowing new drivers to come in and come through if they have the talent to race their way in through that Pro Series. It's always a stressful part of the winter if you're one of those drivers that maybe isn't quite on pace or can't consistently keep yourself in that top 20. Have some championship contenders, though, racing it out here. Michael Connie, after his 2-tire call, he's done a good job hanging with that group of drivers that took 4, but he's got a challenger in the 2 of Ray Alfala, who's going to pull up alongside and through corners number 3 and 4. Slight tire advantage for Ray. Should just about be able to get clear of Michael here. 2 past champions duking it out here, and Ray's going to take that quote-unquote second spot in terms of the championship hunt right now. It's still Ryan Luza who leads this thing. Casual 1.3 seconds clear of everyone.
Yeah, Conti a little bit slower on this run. If you remember, he started way back in 20th, was 4th out of those 4 playoff drivers. He decided to go with the 2-tire call. The last time drivers were down pit road, it gave him a ton of track position, of course, at a disadvantage now speed-wise. So Conti going to trickle back to P5. It looks like he might get by Davies, though. Davies a little bit slow. You see that pack, though? Alfala trying to get by Schoenberg. This is all second place on back. There's one driver you're not seeing in your shot, and that's Ryan Luza. Your race leader is gone. 0.3 of a second last time to be the fastest car on the racetrack. That's the view out of the back end of the 6 machine. He is checking out for the race leader.
If you look out the back of that 6 machine, you saw for a moment a little red blob on the right-hand side of a black one. That was the 2 of Ray Alfala, thinking of making a move on Brian Schoenberg. He's setting it up off of turn 4. Let's see, can he get the run? I think this 2 car in some clean air could be bad fast. We just need to wait and see. Not going to be able to set the move up on that double nickel just yet, and they're going to roll through 1 and 2 more or less single file. We're starting to see, Evan, those different lanes of the racetrack come out and work. You see some drivers going down up against that white line, others others running sort of the middle, and others still running up against the top front of the Larson line, as you could call it. So we're seeing 3 different parts of this racetrack getting used by everybody, and that's going to affect how everyone's tires wear over the course of this run. Going to be really interesting once we get 15 to 20 laps into this green flag segment, see who has tires and who doesn't.
We were talking to pre-race about what we like about this Homestead at Miami Speedway, and well, that progressive banking is allowing these drivers to do that surging for grip that you were just describing. It's 18 degrees at the bottom and 20 degrees up and outside. It's not a huge variance, but it is enough, and especially maybe if you're not familiar with the iRacing service on this sim dynamic track, you will see visually that darker part of the racetrack down low as we see Ray Alfalla clear Brian Schoenberg for second on track right now. That darker line is going to get darker and darker as this race goes on, as these cars put rubber down onto the track. What you cannot see is that that's also going to put heat into the racetrack, and that is we're going to spread out this groove over the course of the race. That is something that is still relatively new to this iRacing service as of the last year, and it certainly makes for exciting races. When you talk about the course of 250 miles, this racetrack is going to change a ton tonight.
I think it's actually been longer than that, Evan. I know it can sometimes be weird thinking about how long it's been, but you have to think dirt's almost been coming up on 2 years now. The dynamic tracks were before that, so it's been a long time that these guys have had this to work with, but it still just throws such a curveball as that 2 machine is going to try to reel in that 6 car of Ryan Luza. He was only about a 10th off that last lap through, but let's see what he can get. I think this first lap in clean air will really be the indicator. He's pulled away nicely from the 55 of Brian Schoenberg. You see the gap almost exactly at 2 seconds as they come off of turn 4. Ryan's going to put in a time right there of 32.115, and Ray's going to take about half a tenth out of him. It may not sound like much, but if he can just consistently bring that gap down, there's enough time for him to work this. And keep in mind, any yellow resets that field and erases Ryan's lead pretty much immediately.
And Ray Alfalla is going to be so consistent, obviously, a name that jumps off the paper if you're familiar at all with this series. The 3-time champion, Ray Alfalla, tried to chase down the defending series champion, Ryan Luza, took home this title just 1 year ago. It was Alfalla's 3 championships coming in 2011, 2012, and then most recently in 2016. So Alfalla's not only the only multi-time champion, is the only driver to ever go back-to-back. That's what Luz is hoping to do tonight as we go on board. There is Michael Conti again, took 2 tires on the trip down to the pit lane. I think any advantage or disadvantage on the tires have kind of mellowed out by now, and he's in a pretty fair fight as the 14 to Casey Kerwin clears him.
Definitely did very well through that opening couple stints. I think as we get deeper into this run, though, he should be somewhat disadvantaged here just because those left sides are going to be so much older than everyone else's. He's going to go down up against the inside, the bulk of the field around him, kind of running that middle to higher line. He's going to come up, gets all sorts of sideways. He is really fighting. That 5 car right now just looks scary loose at the moment. He's going to be side by side with Blake Reynolds and the 34 of Matt Busa. Going to want to make something of this as well, but no, the 34 is going to slide back. He might be able to slot himself actually a spot in line here, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Actually, no, he's going to defend the inside on that 34 Matt Busa, but I think we're at the phase of the run where those inside tires are probably going to be so beat up. This is where we see Conti start sliding backwards, but considering he had himself a 20th position starting spot tonight, I think he had to do this on that opening caution, Evan. I think setting himself up at least inside the top 10 is the only choice he could ever make.
As long as you don't fall back further than 20th, it's not going to be the worst of calls, although I think it would have worked out a lot better for Conti, having seen everybody want tires after just 4 laps, for him to make that call, and then maybe a shorter 5 to 10 lap run. You kind of reset the strategy, and he's back on par with everybody. But now you saw the 11 machine, that's Colton Davis, diving to the inside. Conti's going to trickle out of the top 10 here if that green and yellow 46 of Logan Clampett down low can get by him. And I promise you those drivers aren't going to be letting up. Chris Overland there, Phil Diaz, a handful of other drivers. You go on board with Logan Clampett in that 46 machine. What a race in the open round of the playoffs as a non-playoff driver. Going to make a statement tonight, a little bit of a bad quarter for Colton Davis. So Clampett's going to go up on the outside of the racetrack, but that 5 machine of Michael Conti all of a sudden finds himself back 4th out of 4 amongst your playoff drivers. Ryan Luza leads, Ray Alfalla is 2nd, Matt Busa 8th, and Michael Conti in 9th.
It's definitely looking like Ryan and Ray might be the favorites tonight, but so much can change in these races. Just catch one caution flag at the wrong time, one weird pit strategy that ends up panning itself out. Everything can get turned upside down on its head. We're not even close to we're not even halfway to halfway in this race, so it's hard to really say definitively who has an advantage or who doesn't. But I will say that 6 car and the 2 car, they look like the 2 quickest out of everyone else in the field tonight.
But Alfala's no longer been picking away those couple of hundredths of a second. It is very much balanced out. You see the interval at the bottom of your screen, 2.2 seconds between race leader Ryan Luza and Ray Alfala. And again, the 2 certainly had to be a lot more aggressive on this run, dodging and weaving through traffic to get to the second position. Once they've gone to clean air, it has pretty much been a stalemate between those 2. So you talk about a yellow and you double them up, it is pretty much going to be a dead heat amongst those 2 cars. But at the moment, Ryan Luza, the better qualifying effort, and therefore the better track position, really playing into his favor as we go on board with Matt Busa. He'll take a spot away from Bobby Zelensky, move up to P7.
Been a nice opening run for that 34. Matt Busa moving himself up to 7th, up 1 from where he started in that 8th spot. I believe he may have lost a couple of spots after that initial caution on pit road. So doing a good job rebounding. We've seen that 34 car doing a lot of going forward rather than much going backward. The next car in line is that purple number 66 of Blake Reynolds. See him running that top groove. Matt reeled him in on the entry into 1. Going to fall back a little bit as they run down the back straightaway, though. So that 34 car looks relatively hooked up, and Matt looks comfortable tonight. That's exactly what you want to see. They're going to somewhat swap positions here through 3 and 4. 66 on the bottom, 34 up top.
So these swap out positions, not at all surprising to see drivers as well working higher down at one end of the racetrack, lower down at the other end. You can see the discrepancy right there. Look at the 2 cars up top. That's Kerwin and Schoenberg. Meanwhile, the 14 machine right down on the very inside, and he got sideways that time at a quarter 2. The 14 will lose a ton of speed as he had to roll out of the throttle to wreck that race car, and it is going to allow Blake Reynolds to get up alongside him. That's one of the challenges about sim racing, is you cannot feel what the car is doing underneath you. You have to look and rely really on visual cues as well as sounds, and if you've got something like a triple monitor setup, you can use those peripherals to help you out. It was a good catch by Kerwin, but not doing your tires any favors by doing that.
I mean, let's just say it the way it is. The 66 of Blake Reynolds gets a big bite of oversteer. You don't feel that car on your butt. That's really, it is something that people always talk about in sim racing. It's one of the big things of driving a race car. You don't really get it in the sim. You get some of those feelings, like you said. You can rely on the peripheral vision. You get some audio cues, and of course any force feedback in the wheel, depending on the type of wheel you're running. That'll all help you as well. But it is just one of the things unique driving a car in a sim race that you kind of have to learn, have to deal with. I think we might have a car up in the wall. I believe it might have been Phil Diaz making a little bit of a scrape on it. Indeed, he did through 1 or 2. Actually, no, he just barely missed it. Take that back. But the 5 of Michael Connie was back there around him and keeping track of him. That 5 car, who started in 20th and was at some point up somewhere around 3rd, finds himself P15, 5.5 seconds off Ryan Luza in the 6th. So just going the absolute wrong way right now is Michael Connie.
Is just trickling down, and again, I think his strategy really relied on a quick yellow. If drivers are going to pit for tires 4 laps in, you get a 10-lap run, certainly he would have been a top 5 car. Everybody would have balanced out. Instead, longest green flag run of the night now with 35 laps complete from Homestead, and his fall through the running order continues. You are taking a look at Matt Busa. He's currently 2nd amongst their championship 4 drivers. Just recently took over the number 7 spot. He wants more, as he tries to get up and around Casey Kerwin. That's the battle between the 34 and the 14. Very different lines. This end of the racetrack, that 14 right up against the outside wall. It is going to give him the run off of the corner as Busa pulls alongside.
And look at the speed he gets going down the back straightaway just from running down the hill there. That little bit of help and gravity, and of course the steeper banking up there, you can carry just that little bit more speed. Basically acts sort of like a cushion would on a dirt track. The 34 Matt Busa is going to run a little higher up in 3 and 4, and he's going to get a bit of a run. He's going to work the draft probably. Will peek out going down the front straightaway, but I don't think he's going to be even close to making a move in towards one, and he's not going to think about it. You see the cars fan out to the different points of the racetrack they're comfortable in. All 3 lanes getting used by drivers in your top 5.
And Matt Busa comes into this race as the only driver in the Championship 4 without a championship to his name already. In fact, he just got his first career win a handful of weeks ago to lock himself into this championship, and this is the closest he has ever been to a title in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. I bet you he's using that underdog title as a bit of determination as he is running a very good opening race. Qualifying was key for him. We were just kind of discussing some of the statistics before this race started. Matt Busa's average starting position is actually the worst amongst the top 15 cars in points. Forget about the Championship 4. So Busa did a very good job starting top 10, and he's trying to use that to his advantage.
I mean, we talked about the two of Ray Alfala having a relatively quiet championship season, and Matt Busa did the exact same thing, except he was a lot more sneaky about it. He is always there showing good consistency, but I don't think for the most part, if you would ask too many people, who would you put in the Championship 4, I don't think very many would have placed that number 34 car in there. Slotted himself in the top 8. If we get some of our first couple cars hitting pit road, I see the 83 of Bobby Zielinski peeling off on the entry into 3. So watch for some pit strategy and some short pit to open up here. But for that 34 car, he caught momentum at the point of the season when you want to. Once these playoffs started kicking off, got himself a win to get himself into the Championship 4, and he carries it well into Homestead. He doesn't maybe not have the pace of the 6 and the 2, but he's not getting totally thrown in the rear view the way that number 5 car Michael Connie has been. So Matt Busa, he's definitely making a statement this season, even though he's been sort of a seasoned veteran, that, you know what, if I can put all the pieces together, I can stand and fight for one of these championships.
You mentioned Bobby Zielinski came down to the pit lane. Seems awfully early for that kind of a call. Zielinski eliminated in the round of 8 of the playoffs. All he's looking for is a win tonight. So I presume that you can take that strategy call, but I mean, there was only about a 35-lap run or so. As you see him now go back out onto the access road, he's going to lose at least a lap as he cycles back out into traffic. 35 laps apiece all the way through this race, not going to get you where you need to go. I think you got to be closer to about 40 or 45. If you come in pit road at around lap 50, that would take you to about 90, 130 or 125 or so if this were to stay green. And maybe the strategy call is going to be a 3-stopper. Something tells me, based on the history of this race, again, Homestead Miami Speedway has played host to the season finale of this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series since way back in 2011, I believe. Only the first year was it not hosted here. We have seen it for 6 consecutive years since then, and in that time period, we have never, Randy, seen a repeat winner at Homestead. Goes to tell you just how unpredictable and I think how wide open of a race this is.
Certainly helps that it's one of those tracks we only run once a year, and it's not one that's super common through a lot of the official series as well, especially if you do something like the full 36 race NASCAR season that we have in the NASCAR iRacing series that any member on iRacing can do. You're only going to race this track once every year. If you do some of the regular official series, yeah, you might get it once every season or two, but it's not as frequent as a lot of the quad ovals like, you know, the likes of Texas or Charlotte and whatnot. You don't see this track as often, and because of that, some people may not be as comfortable with that. Talking about the 83 coming down pit road, how it may have been a little bit early. One thing to also keep in mind here is that that's a slip angle car, and one of our championship contenders, Two Machine Ray Alfala, Mr. 3-time, that's a slip angle car as well. They may be using the number of cars they have in the grid, so you know what, Bobby, you're safe in terms of maintaining your license going into next season. Come down a little early, tell us what the pace difference is like on new tires. That's going to be one of the advantages that a couple of these drivers with bigger teams potentially has, and I think it's going to be Ryan Lewis and Ray Alfala who really can benefit from that.
It's a 2-second fall off old tires to fresh tires, and I'm sure these drivers have logged hundreds, if not thousands of laps. If you're not really familiar with some of the behind-the-scenes telemetry stuff that some of these bigger teams do in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series, it's quite incredible the amount of R&D drivers that they have that just go in, log laps, they gather all that data, and you can certainly see those fresh tires pay it off, but you can never replicate a race with 30 cars on track with the accurate track wear and all of that with a dynamic track surface. So if that is the case, That's certainly utilizing your resources, as we are now a quarter of the way through this Homestead 250. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Coolant, the official antifreeze of NASCAR, and a proud title sponsor of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. I think we're much now closer. If the decision is going to be a three-stopper from this point to the end, that window is going to be pretty much wide open at any moment now for your race leaders. As again, we are a quarter of the way through this one. I don't think that 4-lap in caution flying a restart at lap 7 is going to throw the strategy off all that much. Ryan Luza, you see him come down the back straightaway. His gap back to Ray Alfala has grown. It's 2.6 seconds as we wait for maybe one of those first drivers up front to make the move.
You see, if you look at second place, a little orange car on the inside of the two of Ray Alfala. That's Bobby Zielinski, and that's the pace difference that we're talking about. He basically came out in the middle of the pack and walked away. He's going to be able to run away from that 2 car through corners number 1 and 2. This is the advantage you get by coming down pit road just that little bit early. So if you're that 2 car of Ray Alfala, if you're thinking about coming down pit road somewhere like 55, 56, I think if anything, you need to be focusing right here, Evan, is to try to reel in that 2.6 second gap. And to do that, I think you have to come down pit road a lap earlier than Ryan does. So if I'm Ray, I'm just trying to make sure that I come down pit road earlier than the 6. If I come down at the same time or after him, there's almost nothing I can do to reel that gap in as quick as that car has been out there. I think Ray is pretty much equal on pace. It's only a little bit of time every single lap that Ryan might be eking out, but at the way it's currently going, Ray does not have the pace on equal footing to reel him in. He needs a new tire advantage.
And if Ray buys into that mentality that I can't let loose a bit before him, and again, if you let the car in front of you get down fresher tires, you're not going to gain any time on it. There should be no reason at all Ryan Luza comes down pit road and Ray Alfala doesn't catch him, because that 2.6 second difference he should very clearly see when the 6 car is going to be coming down to the pit lane. I like that short pit call, and yes, these drivers in this service, they do have actual people in the sim with them, acting as spotters, actual people in the sim with them, acting as their crew chiefs, taking care of the tire and the fuel calls. The disadvantage about sim race, it is all of those conversations, Randy, are happening at a closed channel as the 55 of Schoenberg nearly wrecks that car. The 13 of Brad Davies got into, I think, ever so slightly. It was a great save. You saw that as we were on board with the car behind it, and a close call for Schoenberg. He hangs on. A couple of cars go on through. You'll get a look at it right here on RaceSpotTV replay. Quick snap sideways. Great piece of driving to hang on to it. But the point I was going to make, Randy, is you can't have your spotter go next to the guy you're racing against and try to listen in, because all these drivers enclosed radio channels on the service.
Yep, enclosed radio channels on the service, and of course, if they're even using the radio channels on the service, very likely they're on their own VoIP software, be that Discord, be that TeamSpeak, whatever they might be using. That's generally, at this level, what these drivers will utilize. A little bit clearer, you get a lot more features out of it just based on the fact that that's what it's built for. As we start lap number 53 of 167, still really none of your leaders opting to come down pit road as they work down the back straightaway. It doesn't look like anyone's going to be hitting the access road this time either. So it's interesting to see how long people have waited, especially after the 83 of Bobby Zielinski comes down pit road as early as he did, because oftentimes, Evan, that first car will somewhat be the Pied Piper, and a lot of people will follow them almost blindly down onto pit road, just saying, oh, that car around me took new tires. I need to get down there to cut off the advantage he has. So interesting that no one has followed suit after Bobby hit pit lane. So it's going to be interesting to see how much further everyone else actually goes.
Well, and this has completely changed the conversation. You talk about that early pit stop in this one for Zielinski. He's gone back to the lead lap. You saw him go by your race leaders with fresher tires. Assuming that it all kind of plays out like we expect, he'll become your race leader when all these cars on the lead lap pit. That's just a formality. He might be, though, on a 3-stop call, and I'm thinking at this point, 54 laps into the race, nearly 50 laps into this run, I think we're looking much more at a 2-stopper than a 3. You get to 60, you get to 120. That is more than enough to be able to make it to the end of this Homestead 250 on just 2 green flag pit stops alone. I don't think there's any reason you wait this long if you're planning on coming in 3 times.
Yeah, I think you're right about that for sure. I think at this point it's basically comfortably a 2-stopper, likely going to come in, like you said, on lap 60. That said, you could have some flexibility on when you decide to come down pit road that final time. If you just do it 60, then roughly 120, and then go to 167, you're kind of leaving yourself a sort of a 47-lap run towards the end of the race. We have Nick Ottinger rolling on down towards pit road. So it's going to be one of those situations. Actually, the 6 of Ryan Luza, I said the 2 maybe needs to do something to try to come down pit road first. That's going to be the exact opposite of Ryan pulls down onto pit road, and the 2 machine of Ray Alfala will lead the 66 of Blake Reynolds. They will become your top 2 as they hit the front straightaway.
I like this call by Ryan Luza. You split this race into thirds. He's coming down. He's getting fresh tires. And Ray Alfala is under pressure. He's assumed the race lead in this one now. But Blake Reynolds, very quiet start for the number 66 Ford Fusion. And he is all over the back of the 2 right now as he forces those 2 cars down the back. And now Alfala reacts. But if you're not going to come down with him, I think pinning 1 lap later doesn't do you much good. Alfala has to come in and respond, though. But I don't think this is going to play into his favor much at all. I like the call by Luza to short pit him. Alfala's in. Matt Busa also, the number 34, follows him right down to pit road. So it is going to be a quick pit stop. Should note Michael Conti snuck in that last lap. So the 5 machine with a little bit of an early pit stop. He's now back with everybody else, 4 tires and fuel. The 5 car leaves pit road.
Yep, so the 5 car is going to leave pit road as Alfala's going to get in his box, and the 34 Abusa is going to roll on in as well, just out in front of them. I can't agree with you more, though, Evan. I mean, Ray had more than enough time to see that the 6 was planning to come down pit road, and I totally agree. There is no point in waiting that extra lap to come down onto the pits to get 4 fresh tires, because now Ryan's just going to have an extra lap about that second and a half, maybe even 2 seconds quicker that we've seen. I mean, Ryan's already passed Ray as they work through corners number 1 and 2, and Ray's only down on the access road, and as he comes off of turn 4, Ryan's going to have 30, 40, probably a 6 to 7 second lead here. All Ray did by waiting as long as he did was throw away 2 to 3 seconds of time out there on the racetrack. And you know, it's you either have to come down at the same time Ryan did when you realize he's intending to come down pit road sooner, or you have to stay out an extra 10 or so laps to try to get yourself any advantage that you can. So I don't like this call from Ray at all.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, but if you don't follow that guy down pit road, you have to stay out, I think, for some semblance and stick with your strategy. The reactionary pit stop just doesn't do you much good at all. Interestingly enough, looking at the intervals, Ray Alfala's lap coming out of pit road was actually faster than that of Luza's. So off of the pit road itself, coming down, get it out, Ray Alfala was better, but that 1 lap difference and those fresher tires greatly helps Luza in the big scheme of things. Now, there's a ton of lap traffic in front of Ray right now, and you can see he's working through the back. Once he gets by Davies, he'll finally break clear. Ryan Luza did a pretty good job of navigating that traffic. That could be big as well, no doubt. But these drivers looking to stretch things out and go green. And right now, the unofficial interval between those 2 jumps to about 3 seconds. So Luza gained a second at all of that.
Yeah, so Luza's going to pick up a second. Actually, someone who had a fantastic pit stop, if I'm seeing this right, 5 of Michael Conti seemed to have an absolutely amazing pit sequence, as he's going to be just positioned right behind Ray Alfala. So he's done a good job to pick himself up a couple of positions. We still have some more cars out there, the likes of Jimmy Mullis, Brad Davies getting ready to come down pit road. But man, oh man, that 5 of Michael Conti, what a pit sequence for him, because look at the amount of time he's reeled in comparison, at least to the 2 of Ray Alfala and definitely to the 6 of Ryan Luza. For someone who's running at about 20th before this pit sequence started, he's now going to pluck himself comfortably pretty much into the top 5.
Yeah, our championship 4 all pitted within 2 laps of each other as we watch Alfala all over the back bumper trying to get on by Brad Davies. For right now, that is 7th on track. But Matt Busa, we saw Busa and Alfala both pit. They pitted a lap after Luza. But guess who saw Ryan Luza coming down pit lane and went down that same lap? Michael Conti. That's how the number 5 machine made up that time. And he is still a second behind Ray, but again, much better, certainly, as you mentioned, than when he was running in 20th position. There goes the 2 car to the inside. Brad Davies, not a ton of incentive to roll over for the 2. There is a balance that these not-playoff drivers have to kind of walk the line of, with racing these guys hard, while also not over-driving somebody who has so much more on the line than you do, and Alfala makes a nice pass.
Yeah, well done by Ray there as he continues to work his way forward. Of course, like you said, right now, the leader of this race is the 83 of Bobby Zielinski. That is something to keep in mind as Ryan Luther is going to take over second. The rest of the field that is yet to come down pit road is going to cycle through, so our timing might take a lap or two to update based on when cars ended up hitting pit road, but it's going to be Bobby Zielinski leading, Ryan Luther second, Ray Alfala third, Brad Davies fourth, Connie fifth, Busa sixth. So that's essentially going to put all of our championship contenders inside that top 5, top 6. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as Connie, after coming down pit road that little bit earlier, he doesn't seem to have the sort of pace that Busa has. It's been about half a tenth, 3/4 of a tenth every single lap that Busa has been reeling in, and he's right there on the rear bumper as they go through 1 and 2. I don't think it may not be this lap, but in the next lap or two, that Radicals machine is going to send it as Keegan Leahy, now the newest tires on the racetrack, he wants to get around these two as well.
Yeah, he tries to fight up on the inside of the racetrack, and all of this right now for position. Meanwhile, that 24 on the inside simply just trying to get his lap back. And there's Busa to the inside. They're going to go side by side. This fight right now for P5 of the racetrack as our second green flag service has been completed. And in the dive to turn 1, Conti's hoping that run up top's going to save him. Not this time, though. He'll tuck low as he crosses him over as Matt Busa gets the spot. I guess he'll just have to accept that one. Matt Busa makes a pass for position. These drivers now fighting inside of the top 6 for the last 2 spots in the championship for Randy. I told you when they started spread way out at the start that was not going to stay that way for the entire run of the night, I should say. And they have definitely all started to concentrate themselves up front. Playoff drivers in second, third, as well as 5th and 6th at the moment.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see, especially if we can get something that resets the field, a caution or something. All these guys are logging laps that are relatively close to one another. Ryan Luza, 31.57 last time, 31.45 for Ray. Busa does a 31.6, passing the 5 of Conti. Conti does a 31.8. He lost a little bit of time, of course, getting put behind that number 34 car. He's going to cycle through this time, though. And actually get a similar lap time. So that 5, maybe a little bit off pace, but at least the 3 of Luza, Alfala, and Busa, very, very equal in terms of speed. So if we can get something that stacks these guys up, that fight for the championship is going to be amazing. Because, oh, by the way, Ray's been doing a good job reeling in that 6 of Ryan Luza. It's about 3.5 seconds after the pit stop. Currently, the gap separates them about 2.5. So the 2 cars found about a second in the 7 to 8 laps since the trip down pit road.
And we saw Ray do the same thing on that last run. It kind of died out towards the very end of it, but it did do a good job of creeping in little bit by little bit. And this is the fight for second because again, Bobby Zielinski went with that way short pit call. Came down pit road about 15 to 20 laps earlier than everybody else. And yes, he is your race leader because he was out there on fresh tires for so much time. While the other guys were staying out and trying to, I think, stretch it out on a 2-step strategy. Going to be interested if Zielinski tries to go way long and only pit one more time to get on cycle with everybody else, or if he's going to be forced to make 2 more trips down to the pit lane. You could probably do it fuel mileage wise. I don't know if you're going to have any tires left on the rims though, if that is the direction that you're going to go in. But Luza, Alfala, they are faster, they are closing in. It's 5 seconds now between your race leader and that second place car, and they will eventually get to that point. So effectively, the fight for second and third is not only the figurative battle for the race lead, but of course, it doesn't matter if the battle is for first or 21st. The championship 4, with only drivers who care about one another. So that battle for the title right now separated by that 2.5 second margin.
Yeah, that's really the big thing. It doesn't matter where you're fighting your championship rivals on the racetrack right now. If you're in that top 4, all that matters is that you are and that they are in the rearview mirror. That is what counts for Ryan Mike Luza. I will say, doing a little bit of the math here, Evan, I'm curious. I think Bobby Zielinski should, in theory, be able to go to the distance here. I mean, he should be able to get to about lap 100. And then we've been talking about these guys doing 60-some-odd lap runs, just in general. Those guys that came down pit road about lap 60, we're kind of anticipating them maybe coming down somewhere around lap 120 or so. They hit actually pit road on lap number 56. If Bobby Zielinski can do some similar lap counts, he's going to hit pit road and just blow up this theory I was cooking in my head right now.
Yeah, he's going to come in pretty much just shy of halfway. That means that he's not going to be able to pull some miracle 2-stopper off of the early pit stop. But I think that makes him the only driver who, based on the numbers we see right now, is pretty committed to a three-stopper, where everybody else, I would assume, going to try to stretch this race towards lap 110 or so, and then come down to the pit lane. And if you could go that far, and if it all works out, that would be the one stop to the end. But the longer you go into a green flag run, yes, cars are loose. There's always a chance that a single car incident can happen, but the longer we go green, the more and more the likelihood of this race going green, the distance continues to increase, and it'll certainly play into some drivers' wheelhouses. It'll hurt some of the other ones. You see Matt Bussa right there in battle for position. Blake Reynolds was the one bugging Ray Alfalla last time. Now he's bugging to 34. He'll go to the inside. This bite is for P4 on track right now, and Brad Davies hopes that he doesn't get involved in it in the 13 machine. There you see Zelensky blend back up down low.
I've been watching that 83 car. This is actually somewhat disaster if you're Matt Bussa, Blake Reynolds, Brad Davies, because you're going to have a very quick traffic cone looking Ford Fusion coming up all on you. As you see that 83 car just breeze by this trio of cars. And I think somewhat luckily that was timed almost to perfection, that Bobby could pretty much just use the bottom, get around the first two, and didn't have to deal with Brad until the entrance of one. But this battle now is going to continue between the 34 and the 15, and the 13 as they come off of turn 2, and down the back straightaway for the 75th time. 34 Bussa going to check out the bottom through 3 and 4, and Blake Reynolds wants to follow him through.
And Reynolds buys into that call. The 66 going to go to the inside of the racetrack, and they will both clear Davies, but a big run on the inside. How about Blake Reynolds pushing it down low? He looks to get 2 spots at as many laps, but is he going to be able to maintain speed that far down track? Yes, sir. The 66 is hooked up. He'll slide across the nose of the 34, and Blake Reynolds at a race high P3 now.
Been a great race for this 66 car, hasn't it? He's had sort of a quiet up and down year, has had some good races, but that's been mixed in with a number of bad ones as well. And you know, we'd love to end this series on a high note, this season, on a high note, and a top 5 would be a brilliant way to do that. That said, the 34 Bussa, he's just trying to somewhat keep tabs with both Ryan Luza and Ray Alfalla, as that would put championship contenders 1, 2, 3 on the racetrack. Currently, they sit 1, 2, 4, and 6 as they currently run, as Alfalla is still trying to reel in Ryan. That gap shifted back to 2.3 seconds, as at one point was down as low as 2.
Yeah, certainly you can see the fluctuation as these guys have all bounced around the racetrack. Michael Conti, again, can't understate how well the 5 has turned things around as he runs in second, just a couple of laps away from halfway. And when we get there, we'll take a complete look top to bottom, not only recap where our championship 4 are, but of course let you know everything else that has happened so far in this race. Ryan Lewis's gap to Alfalla had closed into 2 seconds, but like on the opening run, towards the deeper into this run, it has grown a tad bit. Lewis now picks up 3/10 in his favor. The gap first and second, 2.3 seconds, and then it's about another 3 back to Reynolds, who's right there in third position, with Matt Bussa, who I don't think is willing to give this one up in the 34 machine, right there on the bumper challenging. Of course, Bussa doesn't need to race Reynolds, he needs to race Alfalla, who both of these drivers are chasing down, and if the 66 isn't a lot slower than you and holding you up, on the 34, I just take it easy, but Matt Bussa needs to get going. The longer we go deeper into this race, the bigger that 3-second deficit's going to look.
Thing is, though, if I'm Matt Bussa, I don't want to sit here and wait too long. We've had a number of races that basically go the entire distance under green flag conditions. This one, of course, we got that early caution where we had a bit of a half spin and got an early yellow, but since then it's basically the same thing. 160 laps, potentially could go by all the way under green here. So if you're Matt Bussa, laps are currently ticking down. You don't necessarily have time to sit there and be patient behind the 66 of Blake Reynolds. You do that too long and the race stays green, suddenly Ryan and Ray, they could be up the road, and you might only give yourself a stint to try to reel them in. I think if you're Matt, you have to get aggressive here. Like you said, though, if you can't just breeze by the 66 of Blake Reynolds, or if you really don't think you're that much quicker, all you can really do, the smart thing to do, is to sit there and wait in the rearview mirrors Blake Reynolds and try to follow him through as you get up there. But I'm seeing Blake get all sorts of sideways a few times every so often, every few laps. He'll get a big oversteer moment at some point, and I think Matt realizes that and thinks if he's not quicker, he's at least more consistent.
Consistency may just be key if this race continues to go as long as it appears it will. Of the 29 cars who started this race, all but Adam Gilliland are still on track. The gate machine has not officially retired. That car is down on pit lane. But other than that, 28 cars still actively on the racetrack. 25 on the lead lap. Pinarello and Leahy are a lap down, and David Rattler, the only driver, 2 laps down at the very back. As we see now, Bussa want to look to the high side, and maybe a lot of this is just I'm going to run my line, not necessarily try to race against him. And if I catch up to him, whatever happens, it may happen. But as we close in on halfway, Bussa looks to the inside. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Bedliner. The tough comes easy, and I can guarantee it'll be a tough battle for Blake Reynolds as Matt Bussa tries to go low. Nothing cooking, though, that time.
Nothing going for the 34 just yet, so definitely seems that 66 of Blake Reynolds doing a fantastic job matching the pace of that number 34 Radicals Online car as they come down the front straightaway. He's opened up a little bit of an advantage over Matt, so seems like it's going to, if anything, be a little bit of pit strategy. That's, I think I know, nope, never mind. The 54 Michael Guest, I see, he's making a move on the 55. Brian Schoenberg, thought I saw a car sideways, still might have, but that's a change of position inside your top 10.
I think there's always somebody sideways somewhere. The question is just how sideways are they? I think there's an acceptable amount of sideways as we see the 55 of Schoenberg on the inside of Guest. It is for 9th and 10th. And then, of course, there is that little bit of extra sideways that I think you consider that you're in a very tough spot. And speaking of which, nearly into the outside wall, Michael Guest with the back end of that race car sticking out oh so sideways. Shades of what we saw just a couple of weeks ago from the Darlington Raceway. But we are now past the halfway point in this Homestead 250. So let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation, developed from the beginning as a racing service and competition service as well. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks from all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of eSports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR and many more. 86 laps in from Homestead Miami Speedway, and Ryan Michaeluza, one of your Championship 4 drivers, leads this race atop fellow championship competitor Ray Alfalo. The gap between first and second right now is 2.1 seconds. Then Blake Reynolds, you'll find him tucked in third, and then Matt Bussa, the championship driver, started 8th. He's up to P4. Brad Davies behind him 5th, and one of your bigger movers on tonight in the last place of your 4 title drivers, Michael Conti, right now is scored in P6. Behind him is the biggest mover, Taylor Hurst, up 18 spots. Just behind him, you'll find Casey Kerwin at 8th spot. Brian Schoenberg scored 9th, and Logan Clampett rounds out your top 10.
We get into the mid-pack, the 54, Michael Guest, still involved in that fight with the likes of Jimmy Mullis and Brian Schoenberg and Logan Clampett. As Logan gets all sorts of sideways off turn 4, fantastic save by Logan there in the 11th spot as they're going to shift all over the place now. Jimmy Mullis is in this group. He just jumped up to 11th. Nick Ondra in 13th. Nick Shelton in 14th. Zach Novak in 15th. Chris Overland, Ryan Lowe, Phil Diaz, Colton Davis, and Christian Challoner rounds out your top 20.
And then the final company cars at a lead lap here. Chris Shearbird has scored in 21st position. Casey Tucker, 22nd. Along Corey Vincent, 23rd. Bobby Zelensky, 24th. And Andrew Fayash, the 3rd, is the final car on the lead lap in P25. I mentioned this briefly a little bit ago. Keegan Leahy, a lap down, P26. A lap down, Joe Letteriello is 27th. David Rattler, 2 laps down in 28th. And Adam Gilliland is out of this race, parked on the pit lane. He is 29th out of 29 cars who started this race. That's been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And if you do not already have an iRacing subscription, if you go to iRacing.com/membership, you can get 40% off all new subscription levels. That's everything from a small as 3 months just to try it out, or if you're ready to get your sim racing career kick-started, you can get a 2-year subscription. All of that 40% off, new iRacing members only. You get more information at iRacing.com/membership. Now we start to count down towards the end of this Homestead 250, and based on the swing that we saw Conti take by, I think, making the right call on the opening cycle to green flag pit service, we wait. Less than now, as you look at the top left-hand quarter of your screen, less than 80 laps to go in this race. Once we get closer to 60, maybe 55 or so, I think that's when you're going to have the green light. And if you are anybody not named Ryan Luza, you're going to have to pit before him.
And just looking at what we saw before, of course, we saw cars come down pit road during the opening caution sequence. That, of course, was lap 4, lap 5. First green flag stops we saw, that was about somewhere lap 54, 55. Your leaders, Ryan Luza, he hit pit road lap 56. Of course, Mr. Matt Busa came down that same, or actually no, it was Michael Conti who came down at the same sequence as well. Then Ray Alfala and Matt Busa came down the lap after on lap 57. So somewhere about 53, 54 laps from that opening run. If they were to do the same exact sort of sequence here, that would put us somewhere around lap 110 approximately when they eventually get there. So it'll be interesting to see when these guys come down pit road. Do they opt to come down a little sooner, maybe a little later? I will say Ryan's been struggling a little bit in the last couple laps. Ray's put that gap down underneath 2 seconds. So that number 2 car is putting in some work. As you see on the bottom right hand of your screen, almost a full 2.5 tenths reeled in the last handful of laps.
And the 6 machine is going to have to deal with another factor here in the upcoming laps. The 24 machine has caught up to him. That is not a battle for position, but Keegan Leahy, I do think, is faster than the 6 machine. He's still trying to get his lap back. We just mentioned him on the midway race break there, being scored in 26th spot. I don't think he wants to really go up and force the issue here with the 6 machine, though. If he does, it'll certainly slow the 6 machine down. So I think that's why the 24 is hanging back. But Leahy was one of the last cars to come down to the pit lane. That's why his tires were the freshest. And you can see out the front end of Ray Alfala's machine, he sees those 2 cars. Again, only the 6 is for position. The 24 is a lap car. And I guess as long as he stays behind Luza, if the 6 can kind of block him out of his thoughts, he will not be an issue.
Yeah, it is one of those things. I don't think Keegan's going to really race Ryan that hard. Of course, these 2 are teammates. I'd be very, very surprised if he saw that number 24 really throw it hard on Ryan, trying to make something happen here, trying to make up the lap. I would also say, though, at the same time, if you're Ryan, if Keegan's able to get to you, you may not necessarily want to fight with him too much, and you may just let him slip by. So it's going to be interesting to see how these 2 end up just working with this little situation as Ray continues trying to bring that gap down. They're basically just swapping lap times back and forth here amongst these top 2. But I think one thing that has to be, kind of being kept in the back of the 6's mind, though, Evan, is that even though we kind of thought with that first pit stop sequence, you and I both didn't like Ray's strategy whatsoever, but Ray did a fantastic job of not losing any time through the pit stop sequence, really, and coming out on pit road and reeling in the 6 by about a second over the course of those last handful of laps after the run. So the 2 of Ray Alfala may have the advantage of getting onto and off of pit road here tonight. We've only seen it once under green. We were about 10 or 15 or so laps out from seeing that trip down and that battle down pit road for potentially the final time this season.
Yeah, it might be the biggest trip down to the pit lane of your iRacing career. And listen, we talk about that access road on the inside of 3 and 4 as being a factor. We see something similar at Indianapolis, but I just don't think it's the same how gentle you have to be here. We have seen cars in this race in the past exiting pit road, get those right side tires in the grass, go straight up the hill, take out somebody at full speed, and bring a caution out. And of course, that would have huge championship implications if any of that happened. There's so much time available, not only on when you make that call, I should say, to come down to the pit lane, but of course how well you execute in doing so. I can say though that the tires are certainly starting to go away. There was contact a little bit ago at a fight for P8. Brian Schoenberg pushed up into Taylor Hurst. The 55 looks pretty good. The 74, I think the one that has gotten hurt by all of this.
Oh, the 54!
Oh, there it is! The 54 of Guest turned into the outside wall, and we have a caution.
I was just about to say, after that happened, one of our spotters pointed it out for us. The 74 and the 54 had a very close coming together going through 3 and 4 and through 1 and 2, and then it eventually comes to a head right there. So the 74 gets fortunately loose. Mr. Taylor Hurst, Michael Guest just coming up the racetrack. They both go for the same bit of real estate at the same time. The 05 and Nick Ottinger, a bit of an innocent bystander, and for everyone who was wanting to see these 4 drivers running for the championship, duking it out, heads up, all starting relatively near one another, you are going to get it, as all of our championship contenders will be in the top 6 on this restart, assuming they don't mess it up on pit road.
Second time a car got tight and pushed up into the 74 at Taylor Hurst at about 3 laps. That one with a major play on the championship. No doubt that drivers are going to be headed down pit road this time for service. Of course, you're not going to really be able to short pit and get a tire advantage, so look for these drivers to group up as tight as they can, and it is going to come down to who has the best 4-tire stop. But this is lap number 100. Can we go, if it were to stay green, 67 laps to the end of the race? Or would drivers think that's pushing it too far? We'll find out in a little bit. But your race leaders are in.
It's going to be interesting to see 67 laps. That's going to be pushing it, I think, for all these guys. We saw 50. We saw earlier this season, we saw Logan Clampett go for it on some pit stop strategy at one of the 1.5 milers. Potentially actually threw a race away in that one because the way the race fanned out didn't really make sense for going for it for a fuel stopper. But now we might have to see these guys really test their ability to save fuel. Of course, some of the things these guys have, Evan, at their disposal in the sim is they can shut the cars off, they can coast under this caution, as the 2 is going to be very close to the 6 coming off pit road. It's going to be Luza, Alfala, Busa, your top 3. Michael might lose a spot, but that's not going to be the end of the world. But you know, you can shut the cars off under caution and you can coast, and of course lifting and coasting does play into an account with your fuel save. You have to fuel save in the sim in these situations, but is it too far to have to do that, and will you have to split this into a couple of 30-lap runs? This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, if you are short by 5-10 laps, do you split it in half, or do you try to push and come down for just a splash at the very end? Of course, that's all assuming that when we group 30 drivers up with less than 70 laps to go in the season, that they are going to behave themselves and let us go green flag racing for that amount of time. But a big thing to take away from this is Michael Conti does lose a single position. Brad Davies is going to be the one picking it up with a great pit stop, but this time by the start-finish line. Playoff driver Ryan Luza first, playoff driver Ray Alfala second, and playoff driver Matt Busa third. Conti finds himself 7th, and on the outside looking in, but our championship 4, 3 of them run 1, 2, 3 right now, and we've said it a couple of times, you don't have to win the race based on how the format is worded, but the way that these drivers bring so much into this race, countless hours of practice, telemetry, and everything that the resources that the teams can offer them, it most likely will come down to a battle for the race win. We saw our top 4 playoff drivers separated by 20 positions at the start of this race. Right now, they run 1 through 7, and they are going to occupy the top 3 spots for what I'm sure is going to be a spectacular restart coming up.
Going to be interesting, and one thing to keep an eye on, we don't typically see it, pit road remains open until they get the call to go 2x2, and if anyone's thinking about making this race without coming down pit road one more time, assuming it stays green, you'll see someone come down pit road at the last possible moment just to top up. It may not sound like much, but when you're talking about saving fuel to get to the end, you want every bit of gas in that race car you can get. I didn't see anyone come down pit road that would be very competitive. There were a couple of damaged cars that came down pit road, likely fishing for some repairs, but when we get this, I believe we get, nope, we just got the lights out. So we're not going to have anyone really pushing the fuel, it seems like. I would not be surprised if these guys end up having to split this into 2 stints. Now, do you basically do it in 2 stints of 30? Do you do 20-40, 40-20? Do you even go 50 and then set yourself up for a very fast 10-lap run? It's going to be really interesting to see. Championship contenders top 3, and Michael Conti the 4th one in 7th.
Currently, the Fine Machine, after kind of digging himself out of a hole on a missed pit strategy earlier, is going to want to get this done fast. Curious how the inside line on the restart is going to affect him. And of course, the way the rules have been all season, the control car for 3-star Ryan Luza dictates when this race actually goes back into green flag conditions. He has the discrepancy to go from when the pace car dives down to the pit lane to all the way at the exit of the restart box where we took the green flag initially to start this race some 103 laps ago to this point. If we get an equal green flag run to what we saw last time, it'll go to the end, but nothing is guaranteed, and it's a brand new race from Homestead. Quick pull of the trigger from Luza, green flag in the air from Homestead, 64 laps to go.
An early jump from the 6. The 2 of Ray Alfalo will be able to stay clear as they go through 1 and 2. Now the question is going to be is how nicely are people going to play with one another? We often see the first half of these races be very clean and go almost the entire way under green. However, once that second half kicks off, people get much more aggressive. How is it going to pan out as the 34 Matt Busa, who's been fighting with Blake Reynolds for basically the last third or so of this race, has them side by side. You know he wants to get clear, and he's going to be frustrated if that purple 66 gets out in front of him because there's $10,000 on the line. He's going to throw it down the inside in towards 1 and 2, but Reynolds will have the momentum up top. Meanwhile, Luza's trying to run away from Ray.
The fact that he's side by side right now for third is going to be infuriating to Matt Busa. Reynolds headed at the line, but Luza and Alfalo both clear out front, both single file, are going to pull away the longer this fight for third happens. Big slide for the 66 of Blake Reynolds. You think he doesn't want this one? And he will let the 34 go there as he nearly fenced it in 4. Toronto work at the outside, and now we're 3 wide behind Michael Conti. It's Casey Kerwin up the inside of the racetrack.
And the 66 of Blake Reynolds gets all sorts of sideways in front of Michael. Michael's going to send it down on the bottom, and this is going to set up the dream situation. Michael picks up the 4th spot, and that puts championship contenders running 1, 2, 3, 4 as they come to start lap 107.
Great restart for Conti. Got exactly what he needed out of this one. It is Luza first, Alfalo second, Busa in third, and now Conti in 4th. As the battle for the top 4 is the battle for this 2018 championship, but there's a lot more on track to keep an eye on as well. How about the fight for 5th? Kerwin to the inside of Reynolds. The 66 appears to have gotten his feet back underneath him after a couple of treacherous laps, and it is thick traffic from P5 on back here.
It's going to be great to see what happens, but of course we have to keep an eye as well on the championship 4 as Kerwin's on the bottom of the 66 of Blake Reynolds. Blake's done a fantastic job this race maintaining a top 5 position. He's going to lose it for the first time in a while as the 14 of Casey Kerwin will take that top 5 spot away. But look at that, almost half of the field pretty much 2 by 2 as they roll through 3 and 4. Pretty much the only cars that get their own bit of racetrack to work with are your top 4 as they leap themselves away from the rest of the field. They're fanning out nearly 3 wide though for the top 5 in the back. 55 of Schoenberg going to make a move too.
And it's at 66 of Blake Reynolds in the middle. He actually rolled out of the throttle a little bit last time down the back to go behind Kerwin instead of force it on the outside. He thought that would be the safe decision. Instead, Davies forced his way up top. The 66 was yet again in a battle for position, and he has had his hands full from the get-go. Reynolds a little bit slow that time, center off. The 55 of Schoenberg stays in front. There's clamping right there. Bobby Zelensky has been on a tear since this went back at the green. You got Jimmy Mullis, Ryan Lowe in the conversation as well. These are some of the best drivers in the series, and right now they're all fighting like it looks like the battle for the race lead, but it's 2.3 seconds behind it.
I mean, to these guys, this is going to be for bragging rights. I would not be surprised if you're the likes of Casey Kerwin, Brad Davies, all these guys that are sort of in this fight, they know who those top 4 are out in front of them. They're not really going to, that's not going to be their target. Yeah, they'd like to win a race, but they know what's on the line for the top 4. So in a lot of ways, the person who finished 5th, they're going to somewhat notch it and say, you know what, we're sort of are the ones who ended up winning this race. So the 5 of Michael Conti is going to make a move on Matt Busa. They're, you know, most people in this series are sporting enough to not really mess with those championship 4 based on this situation. They may race you hard if you're in 15th. When it's all championship 4, top 4, as Michael Conti's going to put himself 3rd best on the racetrack around Matt Busa, as Busa gets to run off of turn 4, but not going to make the move this time. They are not going to mess with Ryan, Ray, Michael, or Matt in this situation. They know what's at stake. There's no point in doing it.
And they're going to race with each other. Certainly they don't want to cause an incident, but some of the racing we've been seeing is certainly hold your breath. But you saw that there. Conti got around Busa. Busa probably could have crossed him over, gone down low if he really wanted to. Thought better of it, though, stayed in line. He is trying to play the long game in this race. Still 3 wide in the center of the pack, but that's the battle for the race lead. Ray Alfalla in the 2 has closed in. The gap first and second is now just a single car length. Not only for the race win, but for the championship as well, as it heads down the back straightaway at 198 miles an hour into turn 3.
Ray's done a great job reeling in the 6. Ryan Luza, he's been one of the most dominant cars on the late runs most of the season, but we've seen in the last handful of races, some people really bring that gap down and in. One of it's been this 2 car of Ray Alfalla. He's going to look up the inside through 1 and 2. The 2 car goes low. The 6 car goes high. The 3-time winner in this series, 3 championships, most of anyone on the service, is fighting with the defending champion as they come off a 2 and down the back straight.
Ray Alfalla, the best driver ever to run in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and arguably Ryan Luza, the best driver of the last 2 seasons. Luza made his rookie campaign last year in 2017, took 5 race wins and a first career championship. This year, he's matched those numbers, 4 race wins thus far. If he could get another one, it would be a 10th career championship. And again, the only other driver to go back-to-back, heck, the only other driver to have more than 1 title is the driver plastered on his back bumper 2 seconds in front of Michael Conti.
They're doing a good job right now. They're fighting with each other, but they're being relatively reasonable with it. They know that there's pretty much 50 laps of this race to go. That's not necessarily going to be decided right here, right now. And the thing to keep in mind here, Evan, is there's still pit strategy in play. We do not think that these guys can make it. So one thing you might have to do here and somewhat swallow your pride, if you're Matt Busa or Michael Conti, you say, I do not have the pace to keep up with the 2 and the 6. If the 2 is going to take a look at the inside, they're going to be side by side for the race lead through turns number 3 and 4. Luza should have the momentum up top and should be able to fight Ray here as they go down the front straightaway. But if you're the 5 or if you're the 34, it gets the wall that goes side by side in a 1.
It was the slightest bit of contact, but it breathes new life to Ray Alfalla. Look how hard they drive it into the corner as Alfalla pushes Luza up the hill, but it is going to hurt him on exit, and Ryan Luza with a brave defense will hold off Alfalla again. But incredible stuff between those 2 as Ray drove it so hard into 1 and 2 that he just didn't have the ability to get into the throttle off for the quarter, and something tells me the 2 machine is far from over. He regroups, he gets a run out of turn number 4, and they'll go to try it again. The 6 goes high, Alfalla goes to the inside, and you would think that racing side by side would be slowing these 2 down. The last time by, they were the fastest cars on track again as Luza holds off another attempt. So this is not holding them back. Luza, Alfalla running the fastest laps of the race, all while fighting for the race win.
Trying not to forget about Conti and Busa, but the way these 2 are going at it, it's really hard to as they work down the front straightaway. It's just going to be interesting to see, though, as I try to finish my point, when those drivers in 3rd and 4th come down pit road, because the way it looks right now, they do not have the pace to keep up with these 2, as they're going to go side by side again, and once again, Luza will hold his nerve up top.
And he is just so tight to the outside wall when he goes on that defense, getting every inch he can out of this Homestead Miami Speedway. There is a little bit of lap traffic that you saw those drivers just work by as the Oneida machine comes down to get tires. The concern is if you are indeed 5 to 10 laps short on fuel, then the question is, when do you pit? Because when you pit, you're going to be a lap down. And we have seen far too many times that untimely yellow ruins somebody's night, so that might influence this decision for the top 2. Don't pit maybe when you would want to. Go as long as you can. Play the safe game. You never want a caution flag to be the thing that takes you out of a fight for a title.
But as always, Evan, we talked about tires earlier. You have to keep that in mind as well in the back of your head, because if, say, Ryan Luza comes down pit road and you want to come down in, like, say, 4 or 5 laps, I don't think you can let someone like Ryan or even be it Conti or Busa have, or Ray, you know, any one of these 4 sort of put yourself in their shoes and say, what happens if someone pits a little earlier than I want to? I don't think you can afford to give someone 4 to 5 laps on new tires out here, so you might almost have to sort of wing it and sort of basically slot yourself into the strategy of, I want to pit in this window, and I'm going to come down pit road based on when the first of my contenders come down pit road. I don't care if it's a little earlier than my window or a little later than my window. If it more or less fits the basic strategy I want to do, I have to go for it because I can't afford to give someone a huge advantage here today.
You've seen the exchange up at the top of your screen. Michael Conti now into third, Matt Busa fourth, and Busa starting now to fall into the clutches of Casey Kerwin, which could be a battle for fourth and fifth position, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But Matt Busa not showing his best stuff into the middle portion of this run. Now Ray trying to go to the outside. He's been going low time after time on Luza, maybe trying to mix it up, but for that 2 machine, every time you drive it hard into the corner, you're hurting those tires, and eventually I would think they're going to catch up with you, although you're talking about 2 seasoned veterans on the iRacing service. If anybody knows how to get the maximum out of a set of Goodyear Eagles without tearing them up, I think it's these 2 up at the front of the field. I talked about Alfala being the all-time winningest driver in this series. That is 24 race wins and 3 championships to his name. And of course, Luza, if he could get a 10th win on his career tonight, it would tie him for 3rd most all-time with Kenny Humpy.
One of the other things, Evan, that we need to watch is, of course, keeping an eye on these top 4. It is no longer your 4 championship contenders in the top 4. The 34 Busa just lost the spot to Casey Kerwin. That puts him in that 5th position as these 2 roll in towards 3 and 4, and the rest of the field will follow. I will say, though, if I'm Ray Alfala, I really like this. I like putting a lot of pressure on Luza on this stint, because in my opinion, the tires on this run don't matter as much if you're planning on coming down pit road a little bit on the early side. So if you know you're going to have a short run on the tires, use them up. Try to force that 6 car to a mistake, maybe even potentially a race or championship ending one, and then you may be clear to do whatever you want going to the end of this thing. I like using them when they may not be as important. It's going to be this final run, be a 40-lap run, a 30-lap run, 20-lap, and then whenever they opt to come down pit road, that's going to be the set of tires that will make or break this championship.
Final portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Def Diesel Exhaust Fluid, the #1 selling DEF in America, as we continue to watch the battle for the race win and a battle for the championship, but continuously under fire, a little bit back in the pack. Brad Davies now, next driver, trying to gain his spot. He and Zelensky fight for P6. And Matt Busa is doing a very good job in front of them to kind of just latch on to the back of Kerwin, not fall any further back than where he has already slid to in P5. But we got through, I think, those treacherous open laps. The amount of 3 wide that we saw off of the most recent restart was insane. And I think now that we've spread things out, that fuel question starts to creep further and further into the front of your mind.
Yeah, and especially with these 2, you know, if you're Ryan Luza, this is the most breathing room you've had for a while. With that 2 car backed off a little bit, you see a couple other battles, of course, happening in the field. You see a long train of cars actually behind the 83 of Zelensky and the 13 of Brad Davies. Actually, it's going to be the 66 of Blake Reynolds making a move on Brad Davies off of turn 4, and excuse me, that's not going to be able to stick, as this whole line of cars is pretty much going to line up down the front straightaway, and then they just go ahead and spread it out up and down the field as Ray makes a little bit of a move coming off of 2, but it's going to be advantage 6 car in terms of momentum as it's inside 40 laps to go, and I don't see anyone coming down pit road just yet. Scratch that, Busa's onto the lane.
He's going to make a call. He was starting to slip, and there it is. Matt Busa going to come down pit road awfully early, banking on this race going to green. He will be the first of our championship 4 to come to fresh tires. Busa pits lap 128.
This could be important. Watch for the rest of your championship contenders. Their spotters should know, and they may respond here. Your top 2, neither of them are going to hit pit road. Will Michael Conti send it? No. So these guys, I think at this point, you see that early pit stop come out from Busa here, Evan. I think now you have to give it at least another 10 laps from here, if not 15, before you come down pit road. The question is, do you have that amount of time? Of course, a caution flag could end Busa's race, but if you wait too long, or if you don't wait long enough to come down pit road and cut him off, you could just hand Busa a $10,000 check.
I love the call. You're not going to win the race from Slotty to back into P5 further and further down. He makes a call that could get him. And I also agree with Luza, Alfala, Conti not coming right down pit road. If you're chasing, it can only be so good for you. You stay out an extra 5 to 10 laps. You're going to give up a lot of time now. Yes, when this cycles through, if it stays green, and we go through green flag pit stops to the end of this race, he will be our race leader. But you are then going to have the much better tires on the long run, and you hope that that then plays back into your strategy. But as this run continues to work longer and longer on, as we go on board with Ray Alfala, the 6 machine looking a lot more comfortable, I would say, from the top spot. Ray's still darting high, darting low, trying to do anything he can to make some noise up front. You look out to the back end to lose it now. Those two still glued on one another as he peeks to the inside, and maybe he'll try some side-by-side again.
Wheel to wheel through 1 and 2. Alfala's going to nose out in the lead for the moment, but not very long, as Luz is going to have the advantage up top and is going to easily clear that 2 car down the back straightaway. Do either of them off the pit road? Yes, he does. Ray Alfala makes the call a few laps after Busa.
And he went right side by side with Luza into the corner. And look at how Alfala digs sideways as he tries to get all the time he can. All kinds of out of shape as Ray Alfala drives it hard to pit road and down to 50 miles an hour. He comes down and will get his final bit of service on the night. Now, Ryan Luza, still your race leader. Michael Conti fills the gap and is now running P2.
And I still can't get over the way Ray wheeled that thing on me. It was great watching his hands work back and forth, keeping it straight. You can tell that car was moving in a lot of ways that Ray did not appreciate as he went down onto pit road. Now the question is, where does Ray come out in regards to Matt Busa? Ray's out of the box and running down in towards the access road, coming back onto the racetrack. Busa's getting ready to turn into turn 1, and the 34 has jumped the 2. So that's the new tire advantage I was talking about right there. Could potentially be championship Matt Busa, and look at the advantage he has over that 2 car. Thing is, though, still over 30 laps left in this thing as Luz is on pit road and Conti stays out.
All these drivers separating themselves by about 3-4 laps, and Luza digs onto the pit lane entry as well. Again, you got to nail that pit stop. So now Michael Conti is your race leader. We've seen certainly other drivers come down pit road, the 66, the 27. Basically, all your race leaders coming down now, and it looks like they have really decided to split that 63-lap run to the end of this race in half. 4 tires going to be the call, fuel as well. And Luza is going to go and get that service. Now we just wait on Michael Conti. Maybe he waits 2 more laps or so, then decides to make the call. Again, you do need a little bit of separation, and it's going to be interesting now because basically the way that they exit pit road is going to be in reverse order of speed. There is the 34 of Busa. To his left-hand side, the 6 is just now exiting pit road. So Busa is going to be a mile ahead of Luza. Look at the 2 machine of Alfala, the red car going to the left of the screen there. He's a mile ahead of Luza. So that's the track position that fresh tires get you. But the cars behind you are always going to be faster now. That's the thing to keep an eye on. As Michael Conti down the 5 car comes down, and he's got a big slide. That might have cost him some.
Yeah, that was a little bit too sideways, I think, for the 5, so we would have given up a little bit of speed there as he comes down pit road with 30 laps to go in this race. Where will he come out in relation to everybody else, as Ray is going to be trying to reel in Matt Busa? Keep in mind, the early stop from the 34 car meant he had a handful of fast laps. Ray was 6/10 quicker last trip around the racetrack. Luza will have a slight tire advantage as well, and that means Michael should, in theory, be the quickest over this last stint, but he will have the biggest advantage to try to overcome, as both the 2 and the 34, they're already past. The 5 may have waited too long.
Yeah, we'll see how this is going to play out. Your championship drivers, they both found each other in the racetrack right now. 10th, 11th, and 12th, but there's Mike Conti just exiting pit lane. Matt Busa's already down in turn number 3, and the 5's not even in turn number 2, but he does have a long time to go. This time by 30 laps to go from the Homestead Miami Speedway. Busa going to be by far and large the fastest, but here's a fight for 10th. Ray Alfala has caught Busa. He's going to go a little bit high with the amount of Rattler, looks like, in a mix, but there's the move to the inside, and the short pit by Busa. Not on this run, going to win him a title because Alfala snatches it right back.
Pretty much, I think, perfect positioning right there by Ray. And Matt Busa, still like the call. May have been a little bit too early, but there was nothing else he could possibly do. Now the 34 car has to hope for a yellow as Ray's just going to sprint away with effectively the championship lead. The 6 of Ryan Luza, though. Let's take a peek at the lap times. Ray Alfala last time, 30.99, passing the 34 car and dealing with the lap traffic of David Rattler. Ryan Luza, a 30.6, so a few tenths of a second advantage there for the 6 car of Ryan Michael Luza. And let's just get a visual idea of where in the world Michael Conti is. I think he's too far to even be relevant here, Evan, as Luza's going right now in the middle in 3 and 4. Conti's just now turning in. I don't think Michael can really rate in this gap unless he's about half a second quicker every single lap.
Ray Alfala, your race leader, last time by with a 30.956. The lap for Michael Conti, a 30.541. So almost a half a second faster. The difference between those two at a racetrack right now, though, is 9 seconds between Alfala, who is your provisional championship leader, and everybody else. Also important to note that while Alfala has cycled back past the cars that he had been racing for the race lead with not up until that long ago, he has not gone back to the race lead yet. It is Nicholas Shelton, Corey Vincent, Nick Ottinger, and Chris Overland, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They have yet to pit, and again, I don't think they have a magic trick that gets them enough fuel to the end. They are just trying to ride this one out as long as they can, maybe catch a yellow and gain a ton of track position from it. So your top 4, completely different call for the race P5 on back.
Still like the call from these 4 to at least try something a little bit different to maybe get yourself a cheeky win. You know, most of these guys pretty much safe in terms of the points, and you know, look at those 4 names. Those are 4 drivers that have been very relevant all season. We've seen Nicholas Shelton. He's come in pretty much as a rookie this season. He's been very strong. Corey Vincent's had a good year. Nick Ottinger, of course, winning the season opener. Him and that team has been so good all season. And Chris Overland, really the only one of those 4 that I think, you know, you could say has had a really, really bad season. Just not the way that that driver of the typical yellow flipping a motorsports car would like. Is the 12 and the 10. They're going to be very close to one another, fighting for it is actually the race lead as that 6 continues to get bigger and bigger in the rearview mirror of the 2.
And it's tough to tell who's who in this, but the 12 of Shelton, the 10 of Vincent are fighting for position. All those cars passing them down low. Obviously drivers who have pitted and are unlapping themselves with their fresh tires. So Chris Huber not for position. We saw Casey Tucker get on to by not all that long ago. But they are now all 4 of them lined up. Shelton, Vincent, Ottinger, Overland. That is the current battle for the race lead. These drivers do not have 23 laps of fuel. At least we don't think they do to get to the end of the race. It is certainly a strategy call, and again, when all you can do, come into this one, try to get a race win and make some noise, why not? I think it's the same discussion with Matt Busa. It was going to be tough for that short pit to make the move to win this race, but he wasn't going to win it from sitting around and doing nothing. But Ryan Luza has passed Matt Busa. So P6 and P7 has been exchanged. Alfala now hosting less than 2 seconds of a race lead over Luza.
The thing is, though, as we keep watching this, Evan, we've been talking about lap time differentials and new tires for some of these drivers, and especially talking about the 5 car in terms of how he needs to maybe push at a half second a lap here in order to, you know, to really have any hope of catching this group of drivers. The thing to keep in mind is that as we continue to log laps here, the advantage for those on new tires will continue to go away. Just because you have half a second through, say, the first 10 laps of your run doesn't mean you're going to be a half second quicker throughout the entirety of that run. And we're starting to see the 5 car slow down a little bit, and we're starting to see the 6 car hit that plateau as well. So even though they're still quicker and catching that 2 of Ray Alfala, they're not taking as much time as they were, say, 8 or 9 laps ago.
The racetrack, I think, is going to allow Ryan Luza to catch Ray Alfala. They've been able to get clear of some of that thick lap traffic. And in fact, Ray Alfala's got a whole set of quarters in between him and the next closest car. As you watch the battle for the race lead in this one, Nick Ottinger to the inside on Nicholas Shelton. He'll make the pass, and that'll be an exchange for first and second spot. Corey Vincent is right there also. That 3rd car tucked in line, and then that yellow machine of Chris Overland a little bit further out of the back end, scored in the number 4 spot. So again, all of this is battling it for the race lead. Still waiting on seeing when they make that decision to come down to the pit lane. Last time by, Luza faster than Alfala by only 0.02 of a second. That interval is going to get smaller and smaller. Good news for the 2 car.
definitely is great news for the great news for the 6 car anyway in terms of that coming down. But it's going to be interesting to see as that 2 machine tries to work this advantage. And looking at the lap times last time through, it was just a 1/10 and a half that 6 car was able to reel in, and Luza has since moved up to that upper groove on the racetrack, I think trying to conserve the tires. Through 3 and 4 this time, he ends up running a little bit lower now, so maybe just running different lines on each end of the racetrack is something that you can sometimes see happen here. Keeping an eye on Michael Conti. I don't think he has the pace. Ray Alfalo just did a 32.0. Michael's last lap, a 31.8. He comes through a 31.869. Michael does not have the speed to reel these top 2 in. It's now all between Alfalo and Luza, unless we get a caution that somehow checks these guys up.
And there's always a chance, but there are less than 20 laps to go on this 2018 campaign. So happy you're with us. RaceSpotTV, the iRacing eSports Network. Myself, Evan Pasoko, Randy Cheneth upstairs with you as a long green flag run that was just outside of the fuel window. Split up was a 1, 2, 3, 4 order for our championship 4. They all made different calls to come down pit road. And well, for the moment, Nick Ottinger just getting passed by Corey Vincent for the race lead. We follow our championship 4, Michael Conti to the inside of Matt Busa for 7th and 8th on track, and Conti's got it. Busa out at the back end of the top 4.
Yeah, pretty much disaster for the 34. He has to hope for a late race caution, and then hopefully he can pull something out of the bag of tricks from there as the top 2 continue to get closer and closer. The little bit more of an advantage that the 6 was able to eke out that time as the gap comes down to 0.7 of a second between these top 2 in the championship. Of course, we still have 4 cars on the racetrack that have yet to come down pit road, and they are only about 4 seconds up the road currently for the likes of Ray Alfalo and Ryan Luza. So what we're going to essentially have here shortly, Evan, if that group doesn't pit soon, is Ray and Ryan trying to fight for the championship while dealing with 4 slower cars on old tires that are trying to eke this thing out on fuel.
The speed difference is going to be quite in favor of these guys you're on board with, but you cannot afford to hesitate at all. You are going to have to go make that move and be confident in it the first time around. If the pace stays the same, Ryan Luza is going to catch Ray Alfalo. You can see the red Ford Fusion getting bigger and bigger every single time by, but catching a 3-time world champion and passing a 3-time world champion are 2 very different tasks. And well, yes, Luza has been better on the longer runs tonight, and I think that gives him the advantage. Ray Alfalo is going to give it 110% to make that car as wide as this racetrack.
I talked about the fact that a lot of these competitors will try to, in much as they can, not affect this championship situation. Ray and Ryan started reeling in those top 4. 2 of them just peeled off down onto pit road. It's Andre and Sheldon, the only 2 that have to come down pit road currently as we approach that 10 lap to go marker. Lap car, Joe Letteriello. Ray's able to get by him. Next is Ryan Luza, and he's going to get that job done as well. So Ryan still ekes closer and closer and closer as we near that 10 to go marker. This is going to be a crazy run to the finish as they're going to start lap 155.
Still waiting on what Ottinger and Shelton are going to do. Certainly they are going to have to pit. Really no change the last time by. It is still a half second between Ray Alfalo and Ryan Michael Luza. Ray down to the inside. He gets around Shelton. That is for position. The 12 is slow. You'll see the 6 dive to the inside. Luza gets by also. Catching that 12, though, quarter entry going to hurt him a little bit. Not going to be a great trip through 3 and 4 for the driver of the 6 machine.
Yeah, not great right there. Just that little bit of extra time could be really, really important. As these guys head down the front straightaway, that's going to give Ray maybe the time that he needs. Lap 156 of 167 currently getting logged, and the gap is about half a second. 0.54 is what it was as he, excuse me, let's take that back. It was roughly half a second last time through. As the 05 and Nick Ottinger, he's going to peel off onto pit road. He will not be a concern, and it is all clear track in front of the 6 and the 2 from here.
watch the 05. He's going to overshoot the pit road entry, and Nick Ottinger is going to catch that car, but he nearly came up and onto the racetrack, and that would have been a big issue for some of the cars at speed. For the play for the race win, and that gamble not going to pay off as Ottinger is forced down to pit road. We can have a playoff format. We can give you the ingredients for a battle for the win in the championship, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's not in the cards. That is not the case tonight from Homestead Miami Speedway. What you are looking at is a battle for the race win and a battle for the 2018 championship with just 10 laps left to go.
Saw the last 2 laps before the previous one, Ray had actually opened up the gap. Last lap, .074. The lap after that, .06. So about a 10th and a half is what Luza was able to reel in. I think he might be able to get there, but will he be able to actually make a move based on the way the pace has sort of dropped off and plateaued on those tires? They run through 3 and 4 and get ready to come down onto the front straightaway. Inside 10 laps to go on the series, and Ryan Michael Luza has about 10 car lengths that he needs to try to reel in.
How bad do you want this? Not only, of course, the championship on the line, and if you take the title in this, you are a NASCAR champion, no doubt. You get a NASCAR championship ring. You'll be on the stage at NASCAR championship weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. But these top 2 drivers know that. They've been there, done that. All of that on top of the $10,000 prize that can only go to one of the 2 drivers that you see coming out of turn number 4 down. So I'm not going to say it's going to get physical, but there's a chance that you really drive it hard into the quarter. Don't count out Michael Conti, who is in 3rd position, and if something were to happen up front, would be the driver to pick up the pieces as he sits about 5 seconds off of them. But Luza is no longer making up the time lap by lap that he needs to. It is balanced out there at that 5 car length gap.
The dirty air is going to be something that this 6 car has to deal with. I talked about the fact, by the way, that they may not have to deal with lap cars in front of them. They may have to deal with lap cars behind them, because you have the 05 of Nick Ottinger, who just came down off of pit road. He's going to have some new tires and is going to be very, very, very fast. You also have Corey Vincent behind, who's in a similar situation. So those 2, they may get involved in this fight, as it's going to be 6 laps to go when they get to the line.
And the 6 machine closed a little bit there. You saw he ran higher on the racetrack down at 1 and 2, and he is now lower than Alfala at this end of the racetrack in quarters 3 and 4. Lap time for the 2 car, a 32.463. It was a 32.399 for Luza. He's made up a 10th the last 2 times around, and he is trying to wind that car up on the outside of the racetrack. As this tie by, they will look for 5 laps to go, and there are 3 faster lapped cars behind him. Do those drivers dare step near, or do they hang back? Luza the closest he's been now in 30 laps.
To come off of turn 4 as we get ready to get that signal of 5 laps to go. Ryan Luza was close. He didn't get a great run off of turn 4 though, but he sends it into 1 and 2 all the way down to the white line. The 6 is trying everything he can on those slightly new tires, just trying to find any clean air. He's going to lose a little ground as he nearly finds the wall off of 2. That's going to give Ray about half a car length down into turns number 3 and 4. And now another important point of this race comes, Evan, because if we get a caution, the race will be over, and it will be whoever leads will win the championship.
It is that point to no return. There is no overtime in a NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. We either race to the checkered or a yellow flag is going to end this one. Ryan Luza way up the hill, going to look for the big run coming out of quarter 2 and so tight to the outside wall, but he gets the speed that he was looking for. 2.5 car lengths now down into quarter number 3, but we have seen these fights go side by side for so many laps. Luza's got to get to him before he can worry about passing him. 3 more laps to go from Homestead.
They won't have to deal with Nick Ottinger as he lifts out of the throttle and lets Corey Vincent as well as Chris Overland through. I don't think those lap cars in the background are going to be a factor. They're just going to sit there and do their own thing. They came off turn 2 right now, down the back straightaway, advantage to the 2 of Ray Alfala still. Ryan Luza will reel in a couple of car lengths still on the entry into 3 and 4, so Ray still has the advantage off. Ryan has the advantage on. So if if the 6 car can find some way to pull alongside onto Ray Alfalla, I don't think there's any way Ray will be able to hold him off until the exit of the corner. But with just a lap and some change left to go in 2018, there is $10,000 on the line, 2 laps to go, and $10,000, 0.2 of a second separating it.
Ryan Luza has been the best car the last couple of laps, but he is not the best car by enough. He's going to have to figure something out. For the penultimate time through quarters 3 to 4, they look for the white flag on a race, and a white flag on 2018. 1 lap to determine the championship, as Ryan Luza still needs a car length and a half. He'll once again go to the outside, the 6 to build up speed. Alfalla good in the center. Here comes the 6 car. Where does he put it? Into quarter number 3. The car length is going to be just 1 into the final time. The 6 drives it in hard. He looks for the bumper of Alfalla, but he is not going to get there in time. The 6 can't stay in the gas, and Ray Alfalla is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series.
What a final lap. What a final 2 corners on 2018. It was probably the 2 worst corners from both of them. Ray knew that the 6 was likely to send it, was going to look for the bump and run, so Ray dove it in a little bit deep, and of course Ryan sent it for, this $10,000 on the line. It's one of the hardest sends you're ever going to do in your iRacing career. They were both all sorts of sideways coming off of turn 4, but in the end, 3-time becomes 4-time here, and he's going to come onto the front straightaway and probably do one of the sweetest burnouts he's ever done.
Ray Alfalla was 0.2 of a second slower that last time in 3 to 4 than he was the lap before, because he knew Luza was coming. He drove it in hard, and there it is. What is a record 25th career win in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series will be a record 4th career championship, and Ray Alfalla back to the top of the mountain where he belongs, furthermore proving that he is the best oval sim racing driver in the world. Ryan Luza gave him a run for his money and then some. Almost took Ray Alfalla's title of being the only multi-time champion and the only driver ever to go back-to-back away, and Alfalla was not having it. It comes down to the pit stop call, and it comes down to some great driving. Alfalla also becoming the first driver to win at Homestead 2 times on their career.
I think that's going to be, that's a great thing, I think, for Ray as well, because we're starting to get to that point where some drivers are notching track wins, being the only ones to win multiple times at a racetrack. I think that's a huge bragging point for Ray, and especially in a series that is so relevant to see which drivers dominate at which racetracks. Ray normally owns the likes of Indianapolis, and I think he's going to be able to saying to himself that he owns this track down here in his home state of Florida as well.
It is a long celebration lap for Ray Alfalla as he takes the Polish lap wrong way around the Homestead of Miami Speedway, a position that he has been in many times before, and a position in which he has thrived, but it doesn't make it any less sweet. 4-time champion Ray Alfalla. Let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's RaceSpotTV full race results. 1, 2, and 3, all playoff drivers. Luza ends up a second off at the end of this one as he way overdrove the quarter, looking for something. It does not tell the tale of the tape as Luza gets a second in the points, and Michael Conti with a P3 does come home third as well in the championship. Logan Clampett in fourth, Casey Kerwin fifth, and a whole lot of other drivers. Reynolds P6 and Colton Davis seventh all get the best of Matt Busa, who went with a very short pit call, trying to pull the hair mailing out of it, and he ends up finishing right where he started in P8, comes home fourth overall in 2018, and then behind them, having a tip of the captain. And talk much about him, but Zach Novak and Jimmy Mullis, both those drivers pick up over 15 positions tonight, and they round out your top 10 in P9 and 10.
Nice background of the 2 cars shown not done bring him down just yet. In the 11th spot, Brad Davies goes from 2nd to the 11th spot. Not the night he would have had. Ryan Lowe in 12th. Bobby Zielinski in 13th. Brian Schoenberg 14th. Phil Diaz in 15th. With Casey Tucker, Andrew Fash the 3rd. Chris Shearburn, Keegan Leahy, and Chris Challoner rounding out your top 20.
And that also rounds out the cars on the lead lap. A lap down after this would have Chris Overland 21st, Corey Vincent 22nd, and Nicholas Shelton 23rd. Admittedly, they probably should have finished only on the lead lap, but they did not want to interfere with the battle for the race win. Those are the drivers who tried to stay out, and they don't get much to show for it. Nick Ottinger comes home 24th. He and Joe Letteriello, who finishes 25th, are 2 laps down. You got David Rattler 3 laps down in 26th. The rest of these drivers behind the wall, Michael Gass, Taylor Hurst, and Adam Gilliland, come home 27th, 28th, and 29th to round out your full field results tonight from the Homestead Miami Speedway. We will take one more opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, the championship presentation, all of that and more, post-race show on RaceSpotTV. You're watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series on the iRacing eSports Network.
Things can get rough out there.
The bumper to the back of the 24!
You think you got the brass?
I proved it last season.
That was last year. Now we've got young blood ready to take out the old. Start your engines. It's time to race.
And that's how restrictor plates reduce air intake. Moving on. Drag is one of your biggest competitors.
It slows you down, so make sure your car is streamlined.
And don't forget to get an edge with drafting.
Take advantage of the high-pressure air between your car and the one in front. Then you can slingshot it.
You guys taking notes?
At the track, in the classroom, and online. Get special ticket offers for kids at NASCAR.com/KidsTix today.
To the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing
race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Trunkgate goes off. De Jong into second place.
I'm going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying this contact though.
And wide left of the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schubert, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
That's how it ended as we welcome you back live to the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, where RaceSpotTV's coverage of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series continues and for 2008 concludes as we welcome you into post-race coverage here tonight from around number 18. Myself, Evan Pasoko, still alongside Randy Cheneth. You Louise downstairs bringing us to you. Happy that you're sticking with us after an insane finish to this race. An incredible result to 2018. At the end of the day, it ends up Ray Alfala, Randy, on top of the mountain once again.
Yeah, what a run from him. I mean, it's been an up and down year for him. You think about the bad luck he had at Daytona, getting caught out by an issue at Phoenix, and then for him to run back the way he did and to have the momentum the way he did tonight, to hold off Ryan like that, easily shows why he is 4-time now in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series.
And we are trackside with him now, Ray Alfala, your race winner tonight from Homestead Miami Speedway, and now a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. Ray, congratulations.
Oh, thank you guys. Wow, I'm spent out of that one. How about that show? Was that as exciting as it was to watch as it was to racing?
We knew the yellows were going to throw a twist into this one. You guys not able to make it on a fuel. We see Busa come down for a very early pit stop. You come in not all that long after, and we rode on board with you coming down onto the pit lane. Probably one of the most aggressive pit road entries we've ever seen. That might have been the difference maker because Ryan got to your bumper, but it couldn't get any further than that. Just tell us about the call, when you do decide when you wanted to come down to the pit lane, and obviously it works out, but of course talk us through what was a fantastic final 20 laps.
Yeah, that pit entry was brought to you by Rallycross, I guess. I knew, I felt like Ryan held me up enough in the middle of the run, which is when it was a little bit faster. I felt like he held me up enough to where if I was in front of him, I could make up that ground and he wouldn't catch me as much. So I figured I got to pit. I got to pit before him or after him. I just didn't want to pit in the same lap because obviously it'd be us going, nose to tail through the access road, and I just wouldn't be able to gain time. So I was fortunate enough to get under him actually in 1 and 2, which prevented him from pitting. And I said, okay, I'm going to pit now because this is my best shot. Came down pit road. Yeah, that was pretty sketchy, but I just knew I had to push it there. I knew that was it. Those little moments when you're not really racing anyone, but you're racing the clock. And, we spent 2 weeks racing the clock, trying to go faster and faster. So I knew those moments mattered the most. And we came out ahead, and we were like 3 seconds ahead, and I just knew, I couldn't see him, but I knew he would be coming, and he had 2-lap fresher tires. And man, that was stressful to say the least.
You had a lot of, I think, pride on the line as well tonight because coming into this, only driver to win multiple championships, only driver to ever go back-to-back. He was pretty close to making some noise. We saw obviously with the championship that he took home last season in his first year in the series. Ryan Lewis is going to be a threat for a long time to come. And I assume, even though it is the 4th for you, which is a series high, and by the way, a milestone win tonight, number 25 on your career, so congratulations on that one as well. But I have to feel like when it comes down to a good old race like that racing for championships and winning them never gets old.
Yeah, it's crazy how every year it's a little different, and I got to give, big thanks to everybody on Slip Angle, Matt Bontempi, Bobby Zelensky for the whole season. Everybody on Slip Angle, Liam Brotherton for calling lap times, and Turkey for the adjustments. I kind of lost my train of thought. I mean, there's so much going through my mind just because I went into the race really confident, thinking that I had the best car. And then, Ryan just kind of went out there and took off. And, I found myself 2 seconds back just like I did last year. So, just being able to, once we got that yellow, like midway through the race, I said, okay, I'm going to stop complaining about being behind him because I qualified badly. And now we just get to race. Now we just get to do a heads up and, it's just crazy that we're here.
When you look back on obviously what has been a long and illustrious career for you, you talk about how it changes every year. No doubt the talent level in this series gets better on an annual basis. Next year we will celebrate the 10th season of this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. Knowing that it gets tougher every year, a lot of people have came and a lot of people have gone over the years. The fact that you're still here winning races and evidently winning championships, how is that a center of pride for you?
Yeah, I take a lot of pride in just being a part of this series for this long, and being able to be one of the veterans of the series, and just being able to be there, year in and year out, just in contention. And I was just, I didn't have the best playoff run. I got a couple top fives. We knew we had to pick up a little bit of speed. And, once we made it into Homestead, I was just happy to be a part of it, just happy to be, in an event of that magnitude, in getting our sponsor, Virtual Racing School, up there in the bright lights, and then just being able to bring home a championship for them. It's just an amazing feeling, and it's just being a part of the race and just the lead up to it, and all the focus and effort that goes into it, obviously, it makes it all worth it.
As much of a fan I think you are of this virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, a racetrack that has seen you take all these championships home, I'm sure you're a pretty big fan of the real joint as well, and you'll be able to get your championship ring, your $10,000 check come the end of the regular NASCAR calendar, and I know that's a point that you're going to be looking forward to. We will let you get out of here. I'm sure you have some celebrating to do, but for a fourth time, you stand on top of the highest level of oval sim racing in the world as a champion in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Ray, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Yeah, big thanks to NASCAR, Peak, iRacing, RaceSpot. You guys do a wonderful job. I can't wait to watch the broadcast. Again, everybody on Slip Angle Motorsports, everybody that helped out all year. I'm sure I'm forgetting names all over the place, but I really enjoy being on Slip Angle Motorsports, and we have a great group of people there, and I'm just gonna go enjoy this.
Let you get to it. Ray Alfala is your 2018 champion. Ray, we appreciate you giving us this time. Congratulations, sir, and enjoy it.
Thank you, and shout out to my parents, Aldo. Woo.
There you have it from your race winner tonight at Homestead, Miami. He adds to his repertoire championships over the years. 2011, 12, 16, and now 18. Ray Alfala, your 2018 victor. Second place in this race and second place in the championship belongs to last year's winner, Ryan Luza. Trackside with him is Randy.
Ryan, you come in last season and you win the championship your first year in the Peak Antifreeze Series. You come in this year and you are so close. 1.1 seconds when it all comes down to everything, but coming off of 4, you were closer than that as you just breezed across at a brisk pace across the start-finish line. Tell me what it's like to have so much success through your first 2 years, even though I know you wish you had one more spot on this one tonight.
I guess it feels great. Not really thinking about those 2 years right now. But to put it in perspective, we probably have the most wins at anybody in the last 2 years, maybe most laps led. So obviously we've done really, really well, and we came a car length from getting it there. So just, a great start to my peak career. Hopefully there's a lot more to come. But this is what we expect, and this is what we're going to try to keep doing year after year.
Now, going into 2019, what's the mindset for you? I know this was sort of a stressful year for you. You had the physical injury that I know kept you out of a couple races, which may have made things a little bit tighter than you'd have liked, even getting into the playoff segment of the championship. For 2019, what's it looking like for you in that 6-car and potentially even Phenom Racing team in terms of potentially expanding? What are you looking at for the offseason?
I'm not really sure. We haven't really talked too much, but I don't really think things will change around too much, so probably be looking for the same group of guys. I don't know. I think we're just going to everyone's going to enjoy their good, 4 or 5 month break, and we'll see come, February or March, and hopefully we pick up where we left off for sure. But yeah, thanks to everybody at Phenom. Keegan Leahy, Chris Shearburn has put in a ton of hours, Derek Gordo for being on the box, Andrew Fayash and his spotter Bill for helping out and doing calls. Just a team effort, and we've been running really well.
The sponsor plugs were the next question, Ryan, so you've already taken that one from me, but thank you for joining us, and congratulations at least on another successful year here in 2018 in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series here on iRacing. It's fantastic to watch you all season long. Hope to see you have an equally successful, actually take that back, maybe a slightly more successful 2019.
Thanks. I think I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but and make sure I thank my sponsor, Fast Track Sims, for staying on board this year. I want to shout out to Ray, great race man. Wish I could have got you. I ended up running out of gas off the last corner. I don't know if it changed. If it would have changed the outcome if I didn't. I was trying to save a few laps. My car really didn't like it on the bottom, and I had to put it down there just to try to save fuel. It was just it was a really bad situation, trying to save fuel and go for the win at the same time. We were a quarter of a lap short, and I was trying to do all I could, but he did a great job. He was up there pacing himself, saving his tires, so when I caught him, he could really put the gas down and kind of equal our speed. But we came up just short. I wish we could have put on a little bit of a better show, maybe get some side-by-side action, a little more exciting race for the win. But I guess that'll have to do. Good job, Ray. Good job, everybody. Conti and Busa. Looking forward to seeing everybody next year, though.
Well, there he was, the driver of the 6th car from Phenom Racing Team, Ryan Michaeluza, easily the most fun driver to watch in the last 2 seasons of this championship. The driver that comes home in 3rd was definitely a tale of 2 halves this season, definitely coming alive in the last handful of races when he needed to. He comes home 3rd in the race tonight and 3rd in the points. Michael Conti has stood by with Evan Pasoko.
Yeah, there were points in this season where the 5 team expected to do a lot better than they were, and all of a sudden, in the last 2 months, they were the best car out there. It'll be, what is a 3rd place finish tonight, or what'll be a 3rd in the championship on 2018 for Michael Conti. We are trackside with the driver of the number 5 Chevrolet. Mike, congratulations. I know it's not the result that you guys wanted, but, you know, for the way that you guys kind of turned it up in the last 2 months to get this far and give these guys a run for the money, certainly something to be fondly remembered by. But tell us about this one. You guys certainly did not get the qualifying effort you wanted P20, and that kind of forced you to make some moves over the course of this race.
It definitely did. Totally on me there for not making that qualifying lap. I was tracking a pole into turn 3, and the weather was a little bit different than what we had tested in Q-Trim, and just got a little greedy, scraped the wall off at 4, and couldn't stop before the line to try to make another lap. So started 20th, so that wasn't too bad. Played some strategy early on. Hastings and I thought that 2 and low fuel might get us some track position, which it did for a little bit. We just fell off too bad there. But all in all, after a qualifying disaster, and then my internet was going pretty nuts there in the middle of the race. I couldn't really see where anybody was and really expected to fall out. With all of that being said, 3rd on the night is fantastic. I could not be prouder of everything that we have accomplished this year. Hastings, Pat Millay, Brian, Nick Ottinger, Matt Busa, hats off to him in 4th. We were not good early on in the middle part of this year. We were out to lunch and we were way off. And we put our heads down and we figured it out. And we got this Team 4 front car up to the front. And like you said, 2 wins in the playoffs. That's nothing to shake our head at. And we're all really excited for 2019. Some big things hopefully in the works there. And we'll come back stronger. And hopefully we can give Ray and lose another run for the money next year.
You look back on these 250 miles, any specific point jump out to you where you feel like if it went down differently, things could have ended in your favor at the end of the day? It's only a 4.6 second deficit. You mentioned it, the 3rd place finish that actually makes you, I think, tied for the biggest mover on the race with Zach, who goes 27th tonight. So you guys certainly were at your best at the very end. You look back on this one, what's something that maybe you'll think about keeping in mind as we head to next year?
Well, I think we just need to make sure that we're maximizing all parts of the run throughout the week. Obviously, everybody's tight-lipped with lap times and averages, but we had gotten some insight into what some other people might have been doing around about 30 lap averages, and all of our stuff stacked up, you know, pretty decent. I mean, we didn't really have great data on the top 2 cars, so that could have swung it maybe. But, I mean, everybody keeps to themselves, and that's what you'd expect. You know, nobody's going to go out in a public practice session and show off what they've got if they can avoid it. So do I think I could have done anything differently tonight or had something change in the race to get closer to the front? No, I don't think so. And I think that's why I have some peace of mind that I'm really not disappointed. I mean, obviously I'm disappointed that, you know, miss out on the championship, the prize money, and the fantastic trip to Homestead, but we did everything we could tonight, and we really overachieved given where we started. So I'm not disappointed in that. I'm disappointed that we didn't win, but like I said, from where we came earlier on in this year, we turned it around, and we gave Richmond and everybody that supported this deal this year something to cheer for in this last race.
And you alluded to it there. We'll let you get out of here, but I'll follow that question up with the better note, and that is, what is the positive that you take out of this, knowing that out of the 40-some-odd drivers, 50 even at the start when the grid was first set, that went on this journey that started way back at the beginning of the year, now 18 races ago, that you were 3rd best out of all of them at the end of the day? What is the biggest takeaway on the positive note as we head off for a couple of months and we catch back up in a bit at Daytona?
It's definitely a positive that I know that I can still drive for a while there, even into last year too. I mean, the last couple of years have not been up to my standards after I won the championship back in 2014. So knowing that I can still drive if I get a halfway decent car, and halfway decent is an understatement. We had some killer cars here in the playoffs. I'm glad I can still drive. I thought maybe I was old and washed up, but I'm not, so that's good. Another positive, the internet didn't drop out tonight, so I might have finished dead last instead of third and might have lost out in a trophy and an extra $500. So the positives in the race are plentiful. The positives in the latter half of the season are there too. And the best positive out of all of them is we took a lot of people, a lot of supporters that weren't in this series before this year, and we got them involved. They were excited on Twitter. They were live tweeting the race, and they were really interested in eSports NASCAR. So given where all of the other eSports are now, we've got some catching up to do, obviously, but I know NASCAR is going to make that happen. I know iRacing is working to make that happen, and I encourage everybody that's watching tonight that rooted for the 5 or maybe for somebody else, tune in February when we're back racing here, because it's going to be a heck of a season, and I can't wait to kick it off in February.
We always appreciate your time in the inside, Mike. Again, congratulations. 3rd place at the points in 2018. Enjoy these couple of months off. You guys have deserved it, and we certainly expect to see that 5 machine right back up front in February.
Yeah, appreciate that. And just before I go, shout out to everybody in the Hendrick Automotive Group that tuned in tonight. A lot of support from our Rick Hendrick BMW store in Charleston, the BDC that I'm a supervisor in Charlotte. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for taking such an interest in this. And I hope I made everybody proud tonight.
A great showing. That is the driver of the number 5 machine. And to step away now from the drivers who raced this one out as a part of the championship for in P4 tonight, the highest finishing non-playoff driver. That's a theme, Randy. Logan Clampett also stole one of these races a little bit earlier on. He's your 4th place finisher from Homestead, and you're with him.
He definitely was. I think if there's any driver that didn't make it into the playoff segment of the championship that you say probably had the talent and the car to be there, it was the 46 of Logan Clampett. Logan, quick interview for you tonight. One question for 2018, as you were one of the breakout drivers this year. What's some of the big lessons you've learned going into 2019, trying to make yourself not only getting into the playoffs, but maybe even making yourself a champion here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series? Is it anything on track, or is it just learning the difference between slip-on and no-slip shoes for your job?
That's nice, Randy. Yeah, definitely I know what to do next season, for sure, because this season, obviously, we pulled off so many risks, and it just killed our run through the main season. So I think the first step for next season is just try and get top 10 every single race, because that's almost a guarantee in. But I like the momentum we have carrying into next season, because this has been a really good playoffs for me. Even though I wasn't in the top 8, I think I got 5th, 1st, 5th, 6th, and now 4th. So we've had very strong performances the last few races, thanks to the Lockdown Racing guys over there. But yeah, hopefully we don't put ourselves in any bad situations next season, so we can get into the playoffs and hopefully the Final 4.
Thank you for joining us, Logan. Before we let you go, of course, sponsor plugs, and good luck to you in your 2019 season, as well as your first day of work tomorrow. Welcome to the workforce.
Well, thanks to you guys for broadcasting the whole season. Thanks to iRacing Peak Antifreeze for putting this series on. NASCAR. Thanks to Richmond Raceway, Chaos Crew, and all of our secondary sponsors over there, like Kicker Audio, Proline Trailers, and I'm trying to think, and Sim Seats, and quite a few others for being on the car all season long. Really appreciate the support. Thanks to all the fans for sticking with me the whole entire season. Wish we could have, like I said, wish we could have been in the Final 4, at least the top 8 this season. So thanks to them for sticking it out all season long. And then thanks to JDR Graphics for the beautiful car. He might be on the hood next season. which is awesome. I'd like to get that 44 back. Thanks to NX Racing for helping me out all season long. Ashton Crowder and Jarl Tien, and then the Lockdown Racing guys for finishing the season off strong with me, getting a bunch of top fives and stuff. But that's about it.
There he was, driver in that number 46 car, comes home fourth tonight, and I know for a fact that Logan feels that there's some unfinished business for him going into 2019 and a lot left on the table. He's going to be a very fun driver to watch going into next year. Someone else who put on some good shows this season, driver the number 14, Casey Kerwin. Evans got him down trackside.
Yeah, also standing by with us, going to be our last championship Ford driver. We'll get with Busa in just a moment, but Casey Kerwin comes home top 5 tonight for the Homestead Miami Speedway. We're with the driver, the 14, Casey. Congratulations. A good way for you guys to bookend 2018, and you, for the majority of the night here, starting up front, finishing up front, one of the best non-championship cars all night. Tell us how it was to race up against those guys and what kind of positives you can take out of a good finish to end the year.
Yeah, it was awesome. We could finally show what we were really able to do. You know, I've shot us in the foot most of the year. In qualifying, I only think I qualified inside the top 20 like 3 times this year. That was my first top 10 qualifying spot tonight. And we showed the speed we had. We were able to stay up there and fight with them, and, you know, just to fight hard the whole night and get a top 5. And was able to execute a whole race for once. I've thrown away so many good finishes this year just by screwing up on pit stops or just putting myself in the wall, wrecking myself, something. I've thrown so many good finishes away, and had some bad luck on the way. And finally, I got to 6th, or we were 4th there with like 10 to go, and then Clamp It and Challenger got by me, and I was like, dang, that first top 5 just got away. And then I guess some of the bad luck, some of the karma came back our way there with Challenger running out on the last lap and getting our first top 5, and just yeah, just all the hard work that we put in all year finally feels good to get a good result to show for it.
And hopefully the objective is to build upon this one. We'll let you get out of here, but for what is a long season, for those who are able to stick it out throughout, the sponsors, the shout-outs, all of those good folks, Casey, who makes that 14 car go so fast on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, just got to thank Napa, Chick-fil-A, American Pool Supply, LSR TV, Lugnuts Hub, everyone that's been on the car all year. It's just been awesome. You know, to be in this series and competing against the best is something I've always wanted to do, and hasn't been as great as I've wanted it to be at times. But you know, I'm gonna clean things up over the off season. I will qualify better, and we're gonna show people what we can do next year. And also just can't thank everyone on Dead Zone Racing enough. Houston Hamer, all the effort he put in all year, giving me the best that he could, and yeah, just finally got a good result to show for it.
Hopefully the first submittee, Casey. We appreciate your time. Congrats on a good run tonight. Congrats on a good season, and we look forward to seeing what you guys bring to the table next year.
Thanks, guys. See you in February.
5th place finisher tonight from Homestead. We'll task things down a little bit further. It is a P8 position on the racetrack tonight, but it'll be a 4th in the championship. Highest finish for Matt Busa on his career. Trackside with him, Randy.
I'm stood by with the Radicals Online driver of that number 34 car. Matt, talk me through that last stint. I know, you know, I could see it basically in the fact that you chose to come down so early. Realize you didn't have the pace to put in to really give anything to those guys up front, so you had to make a call. How frustrating is it to be in that position, knowing that you have to make a call and just hope it works out, and then it just doesn't?
It's a little frustrating, but also not really. Because going into this race, just having a underdog mentality, sort of, going up against 3 former champions. I was just looking at it that, I mean, I'm guaranteed a 4th in points, and anything better than that would just be icing on the cake. Just go for it, give it my all. And that's what I did tonight, I feel like. So I started out pretty good pace on the first 5 laps of the run, and then for some reason we were just about a 10th off from lap 5 through 20, and then it would even back out. But by that point, I was already like 2.5 seconds behind Ray and Luza. So
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so then that last stint, I just decided to short pit there. That was the only chance I would have, hope for a caution, and unfortunately didn't get it, but I'm still proud of the effort.
Talk me through this season, Matt, because I know coming into this sort of this champion, this deep in the championship and into the playoffs, you're probably one of the cars that a lot of people might have said, okay, that 34 car, he's going to be one of the first 4 cars eliminated. And then you manage to sneak your way all the way through. I mean, you come into the dark horse, definitely into the playoffs, and then you carry it through all the way here into the finale here at Homestead, and you're a relevant car all night. Talk me through what it's like going through the whole season, probably being someone that people write off as being a championship contender and just at least being competitive all the way through to the end of the thing.
Yeah, the season as a whole is definitely, I mean, I want to say it was my best overall. And I feel like previous years I might have had actually more consistent from race 1 through the end at Homestead. But this year, as Conti mentioned, I believe we really actually struggled for the first half of the season. And somehow we were just digging at the end of these races and sneaking in top 10s when we probably didn't deserve them. And then we finally just sat down and did a lot of testing for one race at New Hampshire. It was my favorite racetrack. And we ended up having the dominant car there. And then every race after that, just kept it up and found some tricks here and there and got a little bit more intelligent with telemetry for myself and some other guys on the team. So I feel like from where we started to where we finished, it's definitely very incredible and shows that all the work we do at Team Conti and Gale Force Racing paid off.
Well, it's always one of the fun stories every single season, Matt, and it was good to see someone that's been in the series as long as you, being the ones that sort of have a breakout year here in 2018. Before we let you go, I wish you the best luck going into next season, and who gets it done for that number 34 Radicals Online car?
Yeah, I'd like to thank 3 teams, technically. Team Conti with Michael Conti, Brandon Hastings, Schoenberg, Pat Millay, all the work that we've done in the setups all year in a partnership with the team I've been on for my entire career in MPAS, Gale Force Sim Racing, with Ottinger. And give a shout out to Radicals Online as well for coming on board this season and representing them on the oval side and hopefully in the Blancpain World Championship next year. And then also got to give a shout out to Lombard Bros Gaming. Joseph Lombard and his brother are doing an amazing job with their YouTube channel and everything they do for the gaming community on their end. I'm proud to have their logo on my car and looking forward to working with them next year as well.
Well, Matt Busa ends up at least successful 4th place on the championship this season. So congrats again to you, Matt, and good luck into 2019.
Thank you.
So there we go, Evan. Last interviewee of the season. It's time to close this thing out.
Well, what a way to close it out. And I said it when we got to 20 laps to go and Alfala and Luza had cycled through to the race lead, is you could put a system like this in effect with a 4-driver, or I guess I should say 4-race, 8-driver elimination to eliminate 4 drivers, and then, of course, the winner-take-all format. These drivers could have easily finished 2nd, 13th, 20th, and 39th position or whatever. And then, that's just the way it goes. You're racing against what was tonight 25 drivers who didn't care about what was going on. And, I mean, it worked out so good. At one point, we had all 4 of our championship drivers locked up in a row. And it may not have been, but I think this goes to show you that you don't need a late race yellow and a crazy restart to get a fantastic finish. Strategy, drama, nail-biting action. It all came down. I think the distance was, maybe half a foot between Ryan Luza and Ray Alfala as they went into turn number 3 for that final time. Incredible stuff. Great seasons for both Alfala, Luza, picking up a handful more wins to get Ryan Luza down 9 career wins in just 2 seasons. Alfala picks up his 25th. A huge tip of the cap, Michael Conti, 2014 season champion, for stepping back into the spotlight. Matt Busa, of course, for a best result he's had under this new format. Just a ton of great things to take away. And not only have we had this great NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series, but we've had the eNASCAR stuff, and I promise you that February feels like a long ways away. It'll fly by, and I'm certain we'll have some stuff coming up here on the iRacing eSports Network on the oval side of things before it gets to that point. All in all, great 2018, Randy. Happy that we've been able to be a part of it.
It's been absolutely fantastic. NASCAR's involvement, like you just said, has been brilliant. They've been working with us for so long, and like you just said, I'm super excited to see what we have on the books going into 2019. We have a lot of NASCAR-related vehicles on the sim that I'd love to see some NASCAR-related competitions get some love and get some use for. It's going to be a great 2019. I can't wait to see what everyone has in store for us.
And of course, there's tons of people who have made all of this possible. Want to thank Steve O'Donnell for joining us this evening again. We've had many special guests over the course of the season. There's also a ton of people behind the scenes that we need to thank. Everybody at RaceSpot, everybody at iRacing, of course, the people on the technical end of things, for East Van Ballo for giving us the camera angles, Simon Grossman, Kevin Papey, their team for providing the broadcast CG, Andy Werner on the graphics, Hugo Louise, Will Vincent, Drew Adamson, tons more people, for everybody who's called these races all season long, and for your broadcast team tonight, for our director downstairs, Hugo Louise, for Randy Cheneth, and for myself, Evan Pasoko. We want to thank you for tuning in, congratulate all our drivers, but one in particular, Ray Alfalla is your 2018 champion, a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, as he adds to his illustrious career, and we will see what the future holds. Next year, we celebrate 10 years of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and we hope you're with us then, right here on RaceSpotTV and the iRacing eSports Network. Until then, good night from Homestead.